Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the July 20th, 2023 meeting of the Cohasset Conservation Commission. I'm Tom Bell, the new chair of the Conservation Commission, and I'll be running tonight's meeting as we implement the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act and Cohasset Stormwater Management Wetland Protection bylaws. We'll be operating tonight's meeting using Zoom, the Zoom platform, and ask that the public who wish to speak to enter your questions, comments, or concerns in the chat box. Please include your name and address. Only those who include their name and address will be recognized. We've changed our protocols a little bit, and at this and subsequent meetings, we'll be holding the applicants to about 20 minutes for the applicants and their representatives to project the project. They have about 5 minutes to do that. So I encourage you to stick to the point, only address subjects that are pertinent to your permit or NOI or whatever it is. So main points, goals of the project without extraneous background information. It's not relevant. We don't want to hear that. So everyone will be asked to keep their presentation, questions, comments concise and clear without repeating information. So present this evening on behalf of the Conservation Commission, our Conservation Administrator, is Angela here? Let me look.
No, not tonight.
Okay, so present on behalf of the commission are our town conservation agent, Charlotte Bechtel. I'll now take roll call of the Conservation Commission and associate commissioners, which we don't have one. Please respond by repeating your name and saying present. Will Ashton.
Will Ashton present.
Kathy Berrigan.
Kathy Berrigan present.
Eric Eisenhower does not look like he's present. Chris McIntyre.
Chris McIntyre present.
And Chris McFarland.
Chris McFarland present.
So tonight we have a quorum of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we'll be taking votes via roll call with each commissioner answering yay, nay, or abstain. Our first hearing tonight will be 6 Black Horse Lane, notice of public hearings. So in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Cohasset Wetland Bylaw and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw, the Cohasset Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, July 20th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. via remote participation on Zoom platform for notice of intent 2321 for driveway reconstruction on assessor's parcel F633-061 at 6 Black Horse Lane by Jeffrey and Eileen Wilmot. Charlotte, could you summarize the applicant's NOI?
Sure. Hi, Jeff. Can you hear us?
I can. Hello, everyone.
Hi. Yeah, so I can, Jeff, I can pull up the plan and I'll start a little bit. So this is a notice of intent to remove the existing asphalt driveway and replace it with pea stone. There's also a few proposed bluestone walkways in the front of the home. And Jeff, you want to take it from here? We got the plan up on the screen.
Sure. Yeah, it's a matter of replacing an existing asphalt driveway with pea stone with a cobblestone border and 3 cobblestone aprons. One is by the 3-car garage, and the other one is in front of the front door and the bluestone walkway. And then the third one is closer to the street or by the street.
And if you guys can see this, a small portion of the work will be in the 50-foot buffer, but the pink line is proposing a silt sock downgrading of the work.
Charlotte, could you highlight the 50-foot buffer for us, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
There we go.
So do commissioners have any comments or questions? let's start with whoever wants to speak first. I'm not going to do it in alphabetical order or anything. So speak up.
My only question is, why is the silt sock? What is that? 15 feet, 20 feet from the project? Seems, I don't know why it has to be way out there.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I thought the same thing. I had told Grady that Charlotte suggested putting it a couple of feet off the driveway.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, they put it there. I wasn't astute enough to question it. But I'm sure we can move it closer, I would think.
I mean, if they were gonna drive a lot of, heavy equipment around, if you were building something where you needed heavy equipment, I could understand it, but I would imagine most of the work's gonna take place on the driveway itself. So,
Yeah, I mean, they didn't tell us they were gonna eat up the lawn or anything, or
yeah, I would just recommend bringing it in a little closer.
Any other comments or questions?
I'll also note that this project, since it's removing a good degree of impervious surface, the size of the driveway isn't triggering a stormwater permit. I think it's only like 2,200 square feet. The calculations are down here on the bottom if you guys wish to see it, but obviously no increase in impervious on the site and no alteration of 5,000 square feet.
Can you just slide down the plan, Charlotte,
Yeah.
just so we can see the rest of it?
Oop. Can I clear my annotation? Sorry.
No, you're good. I just wanted to make sure there was nothing we missed, that's all.
Yeah, I would wonder why the silt sock is not parallel to the driveway, why it's just confined to the wetland area. It may not be important for the abutters, but maybe it will. And certainly at the roadway, that's an important consideration as well.
Yeah, I would think we would want to keep any runoff out of the 50. So
Yeah,
I would echo the silt sock comment to pull that up to where the work's going to be. And obviously I don't know what equipment they'd use to rip that up, but should stay out of the buffer zone as much as possible. Obviously, it's a portion of the
Yeah,
work.
we can probably get it around. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a terrible line, but probably, just outside the 50 here. Obviously a little bit of work will be here, but yeah, most of the barrier you can probably squeeze just outside the 50-foot buffer.
what is the gradient here? Does the lot slope down towards Black Horse Lane? Is it steep?
This portion does slightly slope, but it is pretty flat around the driveway, and then the driveway does go slightly upward to the road.
Uphill.
Trying to look for the grading here, but I don't see it. But yeah, at least on site, it's pretty flat, except the driveway does go slightly up to the road. So there is a very slight slope that goes down to the turnaround.
So there's no issue of runoff depositing sediment on Black Horse Lane itself, right?
I don't think so, no.
If it's uphill.
Yeah, it's slightly uphill.
Okay. Any other comments? Any comments from the audience?
I think so.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to close the public hearing and order our standard order of conditions. Please, do we have does this require a stormwater permit? But that's what we're
No, this is
not doing a stormwater, it's just a notice of intent, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so we're not issuing a stormwater permit per se.
just order of conditions.
Yeah, okay. So I'll make a motion to close the public hearing and issue an order of conditions.
I'll second that.
Do we want a condition for the tightening up the barrier?
Yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that the, and with the condition, as well as our normal conditions, the conditions that the silt sock be deployed so that it keeps any sediment out of the 50-foot buffer and as confined as close to the workspace as is practical.
I'll second that.
With the second, I will call a roll call vote. And so let's go here with that. First is Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, I.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, I.
Chris McFarland,
Chris McFarland, aye.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Tom Bell, aye. This passes 5-0-0. Good luck.
We have to, we need a motion. Well, I'll make a motion to issue a variance for work within the 50-foot buffer.
Second.
Roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, I.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, I.
Chris McFarland,
Chris McFarland, aye.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Tom Bell, aye. That passes 5-0-0.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, next up is 725 Jerusalem Road, a notice of public hearings in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Cohasset Wetland Bylaw and Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw. Cohasset Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, July 20th, 2023 at 6:30 via remote participation on Zoom platform for notice of intent 2320 to raise and rebuild their home and a stormwater permit 1313 on assessor parcel B1144 located at 725 Jerusalem Road by Joshua Bystock and Alexandra Pavlova. Charlotte, can you introduce the applicant and the
Yes.
project?
Yes, we have Alexandra and Joshua from 725 Jerusalem Road, and then Jeff Hassett from Morse Engineering. And Jeff can definitely take the lead on this one, but this is a notice of intent and a stormwater permit to raise and rebuild the existing home. Jeff can go into detail about the infiltration they've proposed and some of the grading work that will be done. The existing home is in land subject to coastal storm flowage just a little bit, which you can kind of see from this dotted line in the back left corner of the, yep, thank you. And so the existing home will be taken out of there and the new home will be put completely outside of this area. And then, you know, I will just note that one of the infiltration system locations is in the existing footprint right now, so we can't do a test pit. But, you know, if we were to issue permits for this, I would recommend a condition to just have, you know, the test pit, you know, information communicated just in case, and we'll see if we have to move it or not, but hopefully it should be okay.
All right, thank you, Charlotte, for that intro. Chef Hassett here, and so yeah, this is the property that the house that sits on the property is right here, and that house was destroyed in a fire. It's still on the property, but it will have to be removed. They have frontage on Jerusalem Road here, and then the property is accessed via a shared driveway along the side property line. There are a couple houses beyond here, and they currently have a paved driveway right in this location and a patio in the rear. And the property is about a ½ acre in size, and it's relatively flat with a gentle slope back towards the back corner of the property in this area. The resource areas on the property is there are not any vegetated wetlands on or within 100 feet. The only resource area is the FEMA, which is the FEMA zone. It's an AE defined by the 10 contour. So we're showing the 10 contour more bold than the other existing contours. And you can see it wraps around and encompasses the back corner of the lot, as well as the side, going through a portion of the existing house. And that would be considered land subject to coastal storm flowage, anything down gradient of that 10 contour, so in this area. So In designing the new house, we have cited it, moving it outside of that resource area. The only work in that area would be to remove the existing house, and that area then will just be loamed and seeded. We're keeping all of the grading, the stormwater controls, all of that outside of that zone. Let's see, for the driveway, we'll go back in the exact same spot. It is being regraded, so the driveway will be, removed and then repaved in the same exact spot. It's actually a little bit smaller because currently it's a couple feet wider on one side, and then it extends to the house, which is here. So it's maybe about 8 feet shorter in the proposed conditions. They have a patio out back, which will be pervious, and we have that detailed on the plan, and a walkway in the front, which will also be pervious. For stormwater controls, we're reducing impervious by about 7%. So naturally, there's less runoff from this property. But for good measure, we are proposing 2 roof drywall systems here and here. All the roof downspouts will go to them. We did do test pits on the property. We did 3 test pits, one here right in the middle of that dry well, and a third in the back. I do not anticipate any ledge here because we did not notice any when we did the 3 around this location. And it's within the footprint of the house where typically, there'd be at least a 4-foot footing underneath. But nonetheless, we do have a note that once that house is and the foundation is removed, we'll do a test pit, verify that the separation to groundwater and ledge complies with DEP standards, and then we'll report that to Charlotte. As far as vegetation on this property, around the perimeter of the property, there's very established trees and plantings. So you have a number of trees along the right of way here, along that shared driveway, and then trees and landscaping and a nice stone wall along the front as well. That stone wall is going to remain with the exception of one break in the wall for the walkway, about 6 feet wide, and all of that landscaping again will remain. The only tree that's being removed is one here, right next to the driveway. Just with the regrading, it's going to have to go. It's an ornamental Japanese maple, I believe. And then erosion controls. There will be the standard erosion controls that we propose on all projects. There'll be a 12-inch mulch stock along the down gradient limit of work here. And we're calling out a stockpile area in the front yard. And the driveway will be utilized as the construction entrance. And with that, I'll pass it off to you. Thank you. Actually, one other thing to add, the utilities are all in place. They've all been capped and they will be reconnected.
Comments, commissioners?
So Jeff, is the new house going to be raised? Not raised the existing house is going to be raised, but is this going to be at a higher elevation?
Yeah, it is. You can see the grade is coming up around the house. That is because currently the house is a split level, and the new house will be, traditional. We'll have a 7-foot tall basement, and so we're building up the grade right around the house. So I think it'll look nice because the road is it sits low now, lower than the road, so it'll be brought up to a little bit higher than the road, and we're tying in the grades right at the edge of all of the landscaping and trees.
But none of that grading extends into the area of storm flowage.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're holding that 10 contour.
Yep.
We're not proposing any grading beyond that.
Okay.
So there won't be any fill within that zone, I guess is a good way to say it.
Yep.
Jeff, had you considered an impervious driveway here? I know I'm pleased to see you're reducing impervious by 7%. You could gain a bit more there. I just wondered if it had been considered by the applicant.
It has a little bit of a slope to it. I wouldn't want to do pea stone or something like that. That would then track out into the shared driveway. So it would have to be some sort of, porous asphalt or pavers. And that would add a lot of cost to the project, and they are up against a tight budget here. So they've scaled back the size of the home with a few iterations over like last couple of months. We've been working on this in order to meet their budget, and that would put them over. I think they certainly meet, though, the standards of your stormwater bylaw.
Another comment, I've been told that mature Japanese maples are very valuable, in fact. And this one, it looks like it might be feasible to, instead of just cutting it down and grinding it up, there are brokers who buy and sell these things. How big a tree is this?
It's pretty big. You would need a big spade to get in there and move it.
As I understand it,
If somebody wants it, I'm sure they would let them take it.
as I understand it, they're worth tens of thousands of dollars.
No kidding.
Chris, do you know anything about this?
It depends what species it is, but
I've heard as much as $30,000 for a
yeah,
big.
but it's got to be a special species for it to be like that.
Uh-huh.
But, and a lot has to do with its form and its condition, but yes, there are people that might want to take a look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looked to be in great shape.
If your client is up against some financial constraint here, that might be an interesting thing, at least to inquire about. Chris, who would they contact? How would you find out?
Probably one of there are broker companies around. I'd have to get some names. I don't have them off the top of my head.
I have another comment. It's outside of our jurisdiction, but the wall there is an historic wall. I believe it was built in the time of Augustus Pope, so it's pre-1910. This is a scenic, Jerusalem Road is a scenic road here, and we do have a bylaw about disturbing walls and trees along Jerusalem Road. I think you guys have to go, if you want to open that wall, I think you probably have to go to the planning board. I'm not sure who handles this.
I actually reached out to Cassandra with the planning board office about that, and we decided they do not need to go in front of the scenic road committee because that portion of the wall is on private property. If it were out in the right of way, they would have to.
I see. Oh, okay.
The intent is, it is a very nice wall. The intent is to keep it, though, just to open up a small opening for the walkway.
Okay. I don't have any further comments. Any other comments by commissioners?
No.
No,
Does anybody see any reason for any conditions other than our normal conditions?
no,
Okay, so I'll make a motion to close the hearing and issue the standard order of conditions and a stormwater permit and a notice of intent with our normal order of conditions. And what else? That's it. Gotta get the address right here, sorry. 725 Jerusalem Road. Do I have a second?
Second,
Do a roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, I.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, I.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Chris McFarland,
Chris McFarland, aye.
Tom Bell, aye. The vote passes 5-0-0.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Charlotte, do we need a variance for work within the FEMA zone?
I do not believe so, Jeff. I think you are under 1,000 square foot alteration to remove the home, correct? Because only a portion of the home is in the flood zone.
Let me double check.
I think it was, if I'm remembering correctly, it was under 1,000 square feet. I apologize if I'm wrong.
Yes, it is. Yep, it's under 1,000.
Okay,
Good.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Welcome. So next up is 498 Beach Street, notice of public hearings in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Cohasset Wetlands Bylaw, and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw. The Cohasset Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, July 20th, 2023 at 6:30 via remote participation on Zoom platform for notice of intent 2319 to raise and rebuild their home and repair the septic system on assessor's parcel D11 5518 located at 498 Beechwood Street by R. Lesions. Charlotte, would you introduce the applicant, please?
Sure. So Brad and Joe, I believe Ari is in the audience. I'm trying to promote them, but yeah, we have Joe Webby from Webby Engineering and Brad Holmes from ECR representing the applicant. Do you want me to start with a brief intro, Tom, or?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So this is an existing home that they are going to rebuild, and they are also proposing a septic repair. The septic system will be in the front of the property. Most of the work for the septic is just outside of the 50-foot buffer, but there is a little bit that crosses within the 50-foot buffer to the bordering vegetated wetland on the abutting property. The wetlands have been flagged on the site plan, but most of the wetlands are physically off the property. Due to the existing nature of the home and the property, it will be a 1-bedroom home for the septic system, and it still has to go to Board of Health. Board of Health is reviewing this on August 1st, and they will need to look at some variances as well on their end. So they haven't reviewed this project yet. But I did walk the site and located the wetland resource areas. There's a small intermittent stream within the BVW that goes towards the back of the property and across underneath the existing abutting driveway. And we don't think it is a perennial stream based on stream stats and the criteria in the riverfront section of the Wetlands Protection Act.
So in other words, you determined that the catchment for that stream is less than 1 square mile. And
Correct. Yeah.
you can't calculate a flow using stream stats.
Yeah, there's other criteria too, if it's like 0.5 miles, but I don't think it met those criteria either. It was too small, and unless we do a field investigation, I don't think it meets the criteria. And then Brad, feel free to jump in if you disagree, but it doesn't look like it met those criteria.
Okay.
Sure. Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you, members of the commission. I could share my screen and pull up the plans.
Sure.
Thank you, Charlotte. That's done half my work so far, so that's awesome. This is the property at 498 Beechwood Street. There's a small single-family dwelling. There's a little deck in the back, a gravel driveway in the front. There is a bordering vegetated wetland that Charlotte was describing that just a small portion clips the back of the lot. There's an intermittent stream that travels through the wetland, and then it drains through this culvert that's on a driveway of an abutter, and then runs down into a wetland system to the east of the site, which also connects on the other side of Beechwood Street. Pull up the GIS map so you can see the lot if you haven't not familiar with the site. This is 498 Beechwood Street. It's a very small property here. Let me go back to the plans. So what we're looking to do is to reconstruct the house. I'll pull the existing so you can have that for reference. We're not proposing to build the house anything more than the existing footprint, except for a small squaring off addition on the structure, which would just be this area here to square off the building. It's, as I said, it's very small. It's about 25 feet across by 23.5 feet. The existing deck that's proposed would be rebuilt in the same footprint. The existing gravel driveway would be repaired and resurfaced with gravel. So the intent is just to maintain existing footprints. The existing sewage disposal system has failed, so there's a proposed new septic system here in front with an associated tank and piping. As Charlotte mentioned, that's in front of the Board of Health on August 1st. So we're planning to present that. Joe Webby with Webby Engineering is here if we have some more deep questions on the septic system details. There is a white pine tree that's located here in the front that we'll have to remove as part of the work to upgrade the septic system. But other than that, there won't be any other proposed removal of vegetation. There's a Norway maple here that's kind of in the street layout that will remain. We're not proposing any impacts to that. Other activities that are associated with the project would be, there's a fence that is dilapidated that we'd like to replace. Gives you an idea of the property. This is the gravel driveway, a small backyard, and this is the existing deck. There's the deck there that we would reconstruct within that same footprint, so there wouldn't be an increase. This is, again, looking out at the backyard. That's the fence to be replaced. The bordering vegetative wetlands just off the back of the yard. This is looking towards that abutter's driveway, the wetland running here. That's the pipe culvert that you saw on the plan. This is the front yard of the home. This is where the septic system is proposed to be installed. Here is the white pine, double liter white pine that would be proposed to be removed as part of that septic system project. We're not opposed to, replacing some native species, obviously from your list. As you can see, it's a tight lot, but there would be some opportunity to plant some trees in the backyard if the commission felt it necessary to accommodate that tree. Going back to the site plan, erosion control would be the first step. We'd install that as shown, and the existing home would be removed in preparation for the new home, and construction would be right through the existing driveway and through. So there aren't any rare species or flood zones on the site. We're pertaining to the 100-foot buffer zone. Just, inside the edge of the 50-foot and beyond. Other than that, I think I'll bring it back to the commission. It's a fairly simple project, a very small lot. The assessors department records the property as being built in and around 1900. So it's will certainly be an upgrade to what's there. Bring it back to the commission.
Commissioners?
Is there a basement level on this house currently?
I think it's more of like a concrete kind of block. Let me see if I can get a picture. This is the front, so there'd be somewhat of a basement. You can see it's, if there is, there's not much of one. I don't believe so.
And how about the new house? Do you have any idea on that?
We'd like to do a crawl space so that we can, go back to the plan, so that we can have utilities. But there is that ledge that you saw in that picture that's here on the
Right.
existing condition. So I think it's going to be a mix of a crawl space and slab.
Okay. And,
So-
and,
Or
and,
what story, Brad?
Yes, the proposed house will have a second story, so that the bedroom will be on the second story and or the kitchen and living space will be on the first floor.
So without a basement, the mechanicals then will be on the first floor, is that?
If we have to, right, if they can have somewhat of a crawl space, in a portion of it, or, obviously we have some ledge issues, but we'll have to work with what we can come up with.
What do you propose to replace the fence with? What kind of fence are you going to put in there?
A good question. I was expecting a wooden fence similar to what's there. Can certainly include some wildlife habitat passage, height into an order of conditions, but really just to pull up that picture, just to remove and replace it. nothing like we're looking to block the property with a higher fence, but something similar.
Mhm.
So what is that one, about 4.5, 5 feet high?
I don't think so. I think that's probably more along the 3 to 4 feet high.
Yeah, so I'm glad to hear you're thinking about wildlife passage there. That's good. So the taking the white pine is within the 50, so of course we'd expect that you're going to replace that with a couple of native trees, presumably in the backyard.
We could do that. There is some room that we could place some trees and work it into the landscape. We did list that any landscape plantings that would be proposed would be native and chosen from the list. So there'd be opportunity to plant some trees in the back.
Any further comments from commissioners?
No,
Do we have any comments from the audience?
I believe we have someone raising their hand.
Yeah,
Sorry, it's
think-
hard to see with shared
think
screen.
think it went away.
I think it went away.
Would you like me
Oh.
to stop sharing?
Yeah, we do have someone from the audience raising their hand. Do we want to promote them to speak or encourage them to use
Sure.
Q&A? Okay.
Oh, speak.
Yeah, let's give them the choice if they want to speak or just submit a question, either way.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
Oh, hi. I'm Jen Meckler. My husband Howie is here. We are the direct abutters.
would you
And,
state your address, please?
Say again?
Please state your address for the record.
Oh, 492 Beechwood,
Thank you.
that nice long gravel driveway. Yeah, we think it looks great and we're all for it. It does have a basement now. So as long as some other trees go up and keep the vegetation, we're happy as well.
Thank you. So no further comments from the audience or commissioners, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so
Oh, sorry, Tom. I just had one final question. And Brad and Joe, I apologize. I think I did send an email, but I don't know if I had time to read your response if you sent it. I know this is more Board of Health purview, but just so that the commission's aware, that there will be certain variances that will have to be granted on their part for the proximity to wetlands. So I guess, Joe, would you be able to, or Joe or Brad, would you be able to just help us just quickly explain if it does need any wetlands variances on Board of Health's end and how that may impact the commission, just so that they can understand how Board of Health might be reviewing this and whether or not we might need to review any changes after the fact.
Joe,
Oh, hi,
would you mind?
this
Yeah.
is Joe Webby.
Thanks, Joe.
As far as I know, there are not any wetlands variances that we are gonna need, for the septic system. We're asking for a 1 foot reduction to the water table. And as far as I know, we meet all the criteria to do that.
will that be elevated?
The system's elevated slightly right now, but inside of the 50 foot, because we're asking for the reduction, the grade is going to remain unchanged there, which is one of the reasons we're asking for the 1 foot reduction. The percolation rate was, I think, 11 minutes an inch. So it's a slow rate. The current system has failed because it is in the water table. So, rebuilding the system, 3 feet above the water table is going to be, obviously an environmental improvement over what is there now.
So Charlotte, I'm wondering if this should be continued until they've actually been through Board of Health.
So you can do it a few ways. I mean, you can continue if the applicant agrees, the representatives agree, or we could issue, I mean, we already have a template condition that any changes obviously need to come back to us in writing, but we could emphasize that with a special condition for Board of Health. We do reference the Title V requirements and expectations in our regulations. So it would be up to the commission if they want to have Board of Health look at it first, or if we wanted to put in maybe a special condition about, submitting any changes in writing as part of Board of Health's review. So you do have a few options there.
Yeah, okay. I think that that sounds sufficient, that we add those conditions and to kind of expedite this.
Okay.
And if we need to review it again, then we do. So so you want to propose that condition in a succinct way?
Yes, I just had one more question. So it's mostly for the commission. So, Brad and I have investigated the stream that is on the abutting property behind this property. It is technically a part of the BVW system. So since the BVW is more landward from the stream, obviously it has the further reaching buffer zones. So I'm personally on the fence of whether or not the intermittent stream needs to be located on the plan, but because it's on the abutting property, I'm not sure if the commission wants to do that. Obviously we'd have to speak to the abutter who's on the call, but it's more of a, an administrative technical question, because I don't think the buffer zones for the stream would obviously impact the project other than just noting it on the plan. But, again, the BVW buffer zones are further landward than the stream. So you are seeing the furthest extent of the resource area and buffer zones right here.
So it really wouldn't make any difference if we knew exactly where the stream is, as long as it's within the boundary of the flagged wetland system.
I think so, unless anyone disagrees. Unless it was riverfront, which we don't think I don't think it's riverfront. I think
Yeah.
we're pretty confident in that.
Any of the commissioners have an opinion about that? How do you feel about it?
Well, would it be, it's not going to change anything, but just to note it, just to have it there, to note it, that stream is there. I mean, it can't hurt to note it. It's there. So.
Yeah, you can just see right now on the plan, you do see the 12-inch plastic culvert pipe. So that is located on the plan, but just not the edge of the street. But the flags are in the field.
So Brad, do you think you could, without actually surveying this, could you approximate the stream onto your plan?
Sure, we could put up approximate, intermittent stream reference and draw a line and put a note so that it's documented on the plan.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
That'd
We
be
can
great,
we
yeah.
can make that a condition. I'll also
Thank
point
you.
out that Ms. Meckler is, she wrote into the comments, would a condition be, will it be a condition that the driveway remain gravel? And I would just answer that by saying that the plan calls it out as gravel, so we don't really need a condition. It's part of the process, so.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, with that, then I'll make a motion to close the public hearing, issue the order of conditions, and there's no stormwater permit here, is there?
No, replacement of a septic system is exempt from the stormwater bylaw, and it's not increasing impervious or altering effects.
Right. Right, okay. So make a motion to close the public hearing and issue the order of conditions with our normal standard order of conditions, plus the condition that a written notice be given from the applicant based on Board of Health ruling on August 3rd.
Oh, August 1st, sorry.
August 1st, if there's any significant changes to what we've seen.
And we'd also, there's two other conditions. One is to plant 2 trees, 2 native shade trees as replacement for the white pine that's being removed. And the other one was, boy, I'm losing it. We just talked about it.
Oh, to add the intermittent stream to the.
Oh,
plan.
yeah. Thank
Right.
you.
Okay, so Charlotte, have you got all that?
Yes.
Okay.
So do we have a second?
Second,
We'll take a roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, I.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, I.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Chris McFarland,
Chris McFarland, aye.
Tom Bell, aye. That passes 500. We'll make a second motion to work within the 50-foot buffer.
Second,
Roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, I.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, I.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Chris McFarland,
aye.
Tom Bell, aye. That passes 500.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yes.
Okay, we're going great
Oops.
here. That was right
Question
in
two.
20 minutes. Right on target. And the
No,
others,
that was good.
the others were 15 each, so super. Okay, so it looks like we're going to revisit the notice of intent 2318 continued from July 6, 2023 for 31, 33, 35 Elm Street. Stormwater permit 2313, notice of intent 2318. So Charlotte, would you introduce the applicants and or summarize where we're at? What issues were we hung up on to
Yes.
continue?
Sure. Yeah. So I am so sorry. Can you state your name for the record, Ms. Stassmary? I apologize. I'm terrible with names.
Oh, hi, this is Lisa Zatmary. The S is silent.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. And we have Brad Holmes from ECR and Brendan Sullivan from Merrill. This is a continuance of the previous hearing. We believe we had some commissioner comments about the amount of cut and fill that was going to be done within the land subject coast. It was a land subject coast storm flowage. And I think we did want further clarification on the redevelopment criteria in the riverfront. I know they were working with Brad to revise the proposed mitigation, even though it's not necessarily required per the standards under the act, at least in this case. And so they can go into a little bit more detail about that. I think they have a more detailed plan to show that. And Brendan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe we did also have some questions and concerns about the orientation of the grading and potential impacts to abutters. I apologize if I've left anything out, but I think that was mostly it.
Yeah, I think that summarizes it pretty well. Let me pull up the plan. Where are we? Here we are. So as Charlotte said, so we've revised the grading in the backyard. We reduced the area of the patio in the back, and we pulled the grading way up towards the back of the house. So now we actually have a flood cut in the floodplain of 15 cubic yards, and we have a fill in the floodplain of 13 cubic yards. So we have a net gain of flood storage of 2 cubic yards.
Good job.
So that's the major revision to the plan. We've also revised the mitigation and restoration area, and we've added a plant list that we got from your suggested plant list on the website. So we're mitigating approximately 2,200 square feet of the area inside the 50-foot buffer to the BVW that's associated with James Brook. So like I said, the main thing here is that we pulled the grading way back, shrunk the patio, and we have a net gain of flood storage of 2 cubic yards.
Met my concerns.
Yeah, there was another issue that you mentioned, Charlotte, and that was redirecting flow, I believe, on the east side of the property. Is that correct?
I believe so. We were concerned about the closest abutter to the right and the angle of the grading onto the property.
Right, yeah, I think Eric brought that up at the first hearing, and we've since exasperated a little bit the swale that we have it coming down here. And we've also added a note to direct the runoff. I thought we addressed this last time. So when the house gets removed and everything, this is gonna be a lawn area, a landscaped area. And so that swale will direct the water down, and, adjacent to the existing driveway and down in this area here, down towards the staging and stockpiling area eventually. And it will keep the water away from, the driveway. It's almost like a shared driveway now. The driveway is, the whole entrance is on this property. But then obviously the line comes across here. So the swale will keep the water from going onto their driveway, which it does today. I mean, today the grade comes straight down to the driveway from the house. So this will be, we'll be pulling the house away from there. More than half of the house will be gone in that area. And this will be just to be a lawn area, and we have plenty of room there to create a swale to get the water so it doesn't direct onto their property.
Further comments from the commission? Charlotte, if we covered, as Mr. Sullivan covered all of the issues that were outstanding for from the last meeting?
I think so, unless anybody has any follow-up questions to the changes that were just presented. And I just had one quick question. Does it say on the site plan, Brendan, if the mitigation work will be done by hand? I apologize if I missed that.
I don't know, but I could
Okay.
add that.
We could do it as a condition just because it's much closer to the wetland and it's, behind the erosion control, at least for the heavier work. But if we have a condition that the planting will be done by hand and/or install a silt fence or another barrier down gradient of the planting work, if the commission agrees to that, I think you could probably do it as a special condition.
Okay, yeah, I know we put it in the letter, but it didn't make it onto the plan probably, so.
Mhm.
I just comment that if you added one more thing to this plan, it'd explode. This is one of the more cluttered, unintelligible plans that I've seen in a long time.
Well,
And I would hope in the future that you could find a way to make your plans a little bit more cartoonish, maybe.
readable would be the word. Yes.
Yeah,
I understand that. And it has originally, we
need
didn't
a
have as
plan
many.
like this. We need a plan like this for us to review. So it's perfectly fine when you submit something like that, but it would be really nice if there were a simplified plan that was presented when you're speaking to us and to the public. The public would be totally bamboozled by something like this. They would say, "What the heck is this?" And it would be very difficult to make your points. So I'd encourage you to make a simplified plan for presentations in the future, not just this property, but any property.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, but also, I always like to present something that's part of the record. I don't want to create something that has to be recorded or submitted as a supplemental. So I always like to present a plan that's, what we call the record plan, which is what you have in your office and
This is the
DEP
plan of
has and
record,
everybody else has. But I do it, I apologize. It did kind of explode a little bit with all the plantings and stuff. And usually lately we've been trying to do like a side by side or something which shows, existing conditions on one side and proposed on the other. So they're not overlaid each other. And I do know that it does get confusing. Believe me, I read many plans too, and I wonder what's going on there sometimes. So I do apologize for that.
You have your grading plan and your planting plan on the same page. And so even if you just were to separate those two, it would still be an adequate plan of record. And might be just easier for the public certainly to understand, and it'd help us out a little bit too. So that's just editorial comment, has nothing to do with this particular notice of intent or stormwater permit or anything. It just,
But your 5 colors are great.
yeah.
Keep
that
the
helps.
colors coming.
That
Thank
helps.
you.
Good thing it isn't all in black and white.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so it sounds like we've reached a point where this is ready to go. So unless anybody has any further comments or questions, or anybody in the audience has a comment. Charlotte, anybody in the audience got their hand up?
Do not see anybody raising their hand. Nothing in the chat.
Okay, so with that, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing, issue the order of conditions, and a stormwater permit for, how many addresses does this place have? 2313, no,
31, 30.
31, 33, and 35.
31,
you.
33, and 35, Elm Street. Do I have a second?
Berrigan second.
Did you guys want any conditions about the planting work be done by hand, or are you guys okay with just kind of a soft policy there?
Yeah, no, it definitely, I'm sorry. I thought that was part of our standard order of conditions when it's within the.
Currently fixing that for tonight, later in the evening.
Oh, I see. Okay, right. I'm running ahead of you, I guess, a little bit, Charlotte.
Oh, it's okay.
So definitely the condition that there would be no mechanized equipment in the buffer zones. Not just heavy equipment, but mechanized equipment. This is pick and shovel work. Right, Mr. Sullivan?
Within the 50-foot buffer? I
Yes,
mean, obviously we need something to take up the Bitcoin drive that we're tearing up. That's not gonna be pick and shovel, is it?
oh, no.
Yeah, no, just for the plant, just for the planting.
Just for the planting.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah, that's sure.
The raised part of your notice of intent obviously is going to require heavy equipment, but the subsequent plantings and stuff should be done by hand.
Okay,
So with that condition, I'll reiterate my motion to include that. We're going to close this public hearing and issue an order of conditions with that special condition that no mechanized equipment be used in the 50-foot buffer for the replanting. Do I have a second? Second. We'll go to a roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McIntyre,
McIntyre, aye.
Chris McFarland,
Chris McFarland, aye.
Tom Bell, aye. This passes 5-0-0.
And I think we need a variance for the work in the 50-foot buffer. And then Brendan, sorry, are you no longer altering greater than 1,000 square feet of the riverfront with the revised plan, or I think you're still a little bit over, but correct me if I'm wrong.
I think we are still over the 1,000.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll need a variance for work in the 50-foot buffer specified on the plan, and the proposed work that will alter greater than 1,000 square feet of the riverfront area that's been previously disturbed.
That would be 2 variances or all combined in one, Charlotte?
Probably combine it in one.
Yeah, let's do it. So I make a motion that we issue a variance for work within the 50 and within the riverfront area. Do I have a second?
Second,
Roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, aye.
Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Chris McFarland,
Chris McFarland, aye.
Tom Bell, aye. This passes 5-0-0.
And Tom, I think in your original motion, you did say stormwater permit as well, right?
Yes, I did.
Thank you.
I didn't say the number though. You could fill it.
Yeah, we'll fill it.
Great.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
You're welcome.
Okay, so that takes us to a show cause hearing, I believe,
Yes.
for 805 Chief Justice Cushing Highway for disposal of woody debris in a wetland by the Cohasset Village Greenery. Charlotte,
Yes.
introduce the, what should we call?
Sorry, I mean, yeah.
Innocent proven guilty, right?
Yeah, let me see if, I don't know if I see him in the audience. Justin or maybe Jeff DeLisi? No? Okay, well, I'll just, this one, I did get just an anonymous report. This is the Cohasset Village Greenery. I got an anonymous report that they had been dumping for quite some time in the wetlands. Obviously, those words are scary. I did drive by the site. It is an overgrown area. There's a side road. I'll pull up some photos. There's a side road right next to the property. So this is what you can see from the road. So I had issued, a show cause letter and violation notice and instructed to clean the material out of the wetland as quickly as possible. So I walked the site with the owner and his attorney, and it was we identified it was mostly this stick, branch, and felled tree debris from a previously fallen tree that you guys can see here. In the picture, there is some like extraneous wire that's been wrapped around, but it wasn't necessarily like thrown in the wetland. So the owner, per my recommendation, removed it all and disposed of it elsewhere. There are some wetlands flags that are still on the site. So in regards to where this pile is, there's a wetlands flag that's a couple feet behind it. So it could have been potentially maybe on the edge of the wetland or just within it. But he has since cleaned out all of the debris. I think my photos might be going a little slow, but this property has a developed berm that's right at the edge of the planting storage area behind the greenhouse. So that was a result of a previous notice of intent like 20 something years ago to install from the Conservation Commission. So he basically keeps everything not going past that berm. And so that's really what he's going to continue to do. And he knows not to put anything over this berm into the wetland. But other than that, I didn't have any other follow-up concerns other than just seeing if the commission had anything else to add for the show cause, or if you guys are okay with closing it out.
Charlotte, where was this? I'm looking at the base of a tree here, I think.
Yeah.
And a number of segments of the trunk. Was this cut someplace else and then?
I think so. Yeah, it wasn't like a tree that had like fallen over where you can see the root mass. It looked like that it was maybe some storm debris or something that was from other trees in the general area. So yeah, I didn't see any trunk or root ball or anything like that. This looks like it was mostly the branches and some of the, smaller trunk materials portions of the tree. But yeah, just so that the commission's aware, even though it's just, woody stuff, anything that temporarily or permanently alters the elevation of a wetland is considered fill. So it has to be removed, ASAP. So, the plus side was, it definitely, the call sounded maybe worse than it was, because I thought when they said dumping, I thought they meant like, I don't know, landscaping stuff and materials and everything. So, but he did clean it out with the exception of just a few sticks here and there, but.
They removed that cable.
Oh, remove the cable? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if the cable was removed. I think it was just reoriented, to go back towards the property, but yeah.
A live cable of some sort? I mean, is it?
I don't think so. No, because I asked about that. I don't think it's a live cable.
So,
I don't know why it's there, honestly. But yeah, this is the view from the road. So, well, the abutting road to the property behind it. So this is the berm, just so that you guys are aware. It's, it's a greenery. So he stores all the plants within this area. And this berm was developed as part of like a really old order of conditions. But this is what you can see like just over the berm. So he did clean, this is within the property. I'm just kind of showing you guys the stuff. Yeah, so this is the stuff that was removed.
I'd sort of like to see that cable removed, actually.
Okay. Yeah, we can tell him to do that. Unless if it's live, I'll clarify that, but I don't think it is. I think it's
If it's live, it probably doesn't meet code.
probably not. Yeah, wrapped around a tree stick, probably not.
Yeah, really. So.
And yeah, this is the final, you know, so he did take everything out other than just some like random sticks and stuff here and there, but you can see that the slope has been, you know, restored back down to the wetland.
Okay, so as far as you're concerned, he doesn't need to show up. It's been resolved.
I thought he was gonna show up, but I'm satisfied unless you guys have anything else other than just I can let him know about the cable.
Yeah, I don't have any other concerns than that. Any other commissioners have concerns, or nobody asked questions of other than Charlotte, but
No,
No concerns.
Okay. Cool. All right, we'll close that one.
okay, so what do we do? Do we need a motion to close this, Charlotte?
Probably to be safe, yeah.
Okay,
Just to
so
close it out for the record.
I'll make a motion to close this show cause hearing. Do I have a second?
Second.
Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, I.
Kathy Berrigan,
the Berrigan, aye.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
McFarland,
Chris McFarland, aye.
Tom Bell, aye. This passes 5-0-0. Okay, moving right along. Another continuation of a show cause hearing for Beechwood Street, no address, but we are familiar with the site. I didn't look up the parcel number, but that's okay. This is continued from July 6th. What was left to be resolved here from last time, Charlotte?
Sure. Yes, we have Joanne Tosca, the property owner, and then Brad from ECR, and I believe Matt Watsky, not Rachel, who's the owner's attorney. So following up from our previous conversations, we are working out a mitigation, planting, and replication plan to restore. Oh, sorry, Rachel. Sorry, wasn't sure if it was your Matt. So, you know, Brad can go through his updated plan. I had spoken to Joe and to Brad about, you know, last time we were going back and forth on, you know, tree mitigation. But, you know, in speaking with Brad and a few times, it's a little difficult to cram a lot of trees in here from what they've already proposed. Right now, they're replacing 2-to-1 in the BVW and 2-to-1 in the 50-foot buffer. Currently, no tree replacement for the 100-foot buffer. But we did look at some town policies from Dedham about replacing trees with 4-to-1 native woody shrubs, not cultivars. And so Brad did some more research on that and implemented those into the plan as well, in addition to some wildlife enhancements and conservation markers, I believe, on those wildlife enhancement markers that will delineate the 50-foot buffer. And then still has his monitoring strategies, which I'll let him go into more detail about. And so I believe that was really just following up on continuing to review the mitigation and replacement plan. And commissioners, let me know if I've left anything out, if you've had additional comments that we can address too, but I can turn it over to Brad if you guys are good.
Yep. Let's hear it.
Thank you, Charlotte. I'll share my screen, pull up the restoration plan. We've been in front of the commission. I think this is at least the third time that we've reviewed the project, and we've refined it at each one. I think we've really come up with a good proposal to present to the commission. The restoration of trees within the wetland and the buffer zone remains the same. However, we've added planting of native shrubs within the wetland and the buffer zone. So at this point, we're at 36 saplings and 25 native shrubs proposed for replacement, and everything is proposed at a 2-to-1 ratio for what was cut. We did get a chance to talk to Charlotte and we talked about, you know, the responsibility for older trees that were cut, as far as storm damaged trees, and Charlotte did get a chance to run that by town council and get back to us. And that would be kind of problematic, to try to chase the past history. So we did talk about adding more vegetation and wildlife habitat enhancements, because that was something that we talked about at the last meeting, was the need to address wildlife habitat. So since that last meeting that we presented the project to you, we've included 25 native shrubs. We've included conservation markers, which would be posts with birdhouses and conservation plaques on them, to demarcate that 50-foot buffer zone so there isn't any encroachment in the future. And we've also added some wildlife habitat features, such as some brush thickets that would be woven together to provide small mammal habitat in and amongst the area. Since the cutting occurred, this area has really regenerated quite well. If you've had a chance to be out to see the area, this picture is from early summer. This is after the area. You see the white or the light color. That's the straw that was overlaid onto the recently top dressed loam and seeded area. But we've had a really good growing season with this rain, and we have a lot of recovery here on this site, which is a good thing. Obviously, we're going to have to monitor the area, maintain any non-native invasives that pop up, and pull those and cut. So there will be an ongoing monitoring plan included as part of this proposal. We wanted to come back to the commission and let you know that we have updated the restoration proposal to include additional shrubs and wildlife habitat values enhanced. So the proposal for the trees remains as we discussed previously. Bring it back to the commission.
Mr. Holmes, you have pictures, recent pictures of the regeneration?
I don't have any recent pictures that I can pull up. I know Charlotte was out, I think the other yesterday or so.
Yeah.
You have a picture or two to show us?
Sure. Brad, can I share my
Sure,
screen?
yeah, I'll stop sharing.
So I'll go through, this is the, just quickly, this is the northern side of the property. So these are the previously felled trees that we had previously instructed to be left on site. So I'll just keep slowly clicking through my photos. I will definitely note there are a lot of invasive species on the property, so we will definitely need the management that Brad has proposed in his plan to, you know, keep removing them during the growing seasons by hand, no herbicides, potential ongoing mowing, which we can discuss as needed. But, you know, just to give these plants a chance, that's definitely something we should consider. And then these stakes on the site are going to mark the planting areas. Some of them are harder to see with the overgrown vegetation, but you can see for those who walked the site previously that there's definitely a lot of stuff coming up out of the ground.
Why would it be necessary to mow?
Oh, that's what's specified in the plan, so we can discuss that, but that's what Brad has proposed in his maintenance requirements. That the restoration areas will be inspected in the fall for non-native invasive and unwanted plants for a 2-year period. And then if the non-native invasives are found, they'll be uprooted, placed in trash bags and disposed of. And then obviously herbicides are not allowed and proposed. And then if necessary, he's saying ongoing cutting of non-native invasive plants that cannot be hand pulled will be necessary until the plant is exhausted and does not regenerate. So that can be something to discuss, but that's what's specified for now.
So mowing would be once a year?
We weren't proposing to mow the general area in this proposal. It was to continually cut any invasives. Because
I'm sorry, I said mowing, I meant cutting, sorry.
I see. Okay,
Sorry.
Sure.
yeah.
And then this is the southern half of the property.
Yeah, it's looking a lot better, isn't it? So,
Charlie, what was the feedback that you received regarding the older cut trees from council?
So in terms of, and not necessarily fallen trees from a storm, but for any previously cut trees before this occurrence, council said, we would have to basically look back at aerial imagery to try and pinpoint the specific time of when each of those trees were cut and removed. So it's not that it's not within our jurisdiction for any unauthorized cutting. She was a little gray on the storm damage, like, if a tree just naturally fell and it was just cut to kind of remove it. The removal of the wood, I think, was a little bit more within our jurisdiction, but, we're obviously requiring the applicant to replace trees that had fallen from a storm. She did not think it was, but, for any previously cut trees that were cut down without prior authorization, it could be looked into, but it would obviously get very tricky in trying to pinpoint it and look at it on aerial imagery. She didn't think it was an efficient use of the enforcement order. But again, it's up to the commission. It's just, that was council's opinion that it would be tedious to kind of look back, in this area and try to pinpoint the exact time of when certain trees may or may not have been cut down. And then it would be even further difficult to prove whether or not they were, cut down by the applicant, or if they had fallen from a storm and then cut afterwards.
Mm-hmm. And what can we get a revisit of the tree count, what we're planting versus
Yeah.
what was officially cut in this go around? I know we have that.
Brad, I think that's in the other plan, right? Because they had done an existing conditions total.
In the, in my memo, let's see, there was 7 trees that were cut in the bordering vegetative wetland and 11 trees that were cut in the inner buffer zone. So when we look at the 2-to-1 ratio, we have 14 trees proposed and 22 trees proposed in the inner buffer zone, 14 in the BVW, 22 proposed in the inner buffer zone. And we did get a chance to go through the regulations, and we're holding to the 2-to-1 ratio so that we, revegetate the area. But the 2-to-1 ratio really holds regulations towards wetland replication. So if we were going to propose filling of a wetland, the commission would only allow up to 1,000 square feet, and we'd have to replicate the 2-to-1 for the area of lost wetland. There isn't standards towards plant numbers, but we're not going to do the request for honoring that, and we're keeping at a 2-to-1 ratio. Top of that, we're proposing a 25 shrub to add to that. So we're, the number of plants that were cut versus proposed, I think we're significantly revegetating.
So Brad, do you envision the final outcome here as sort of a mixed shrub blend, meadow, and forested area? What's it going to look like in 10 years?
In 10 years, hard to say. I mean, we'll have a nice meadow habitat with shrubs and saplings that's going to turn eventually to a more overhead canopy, similar to the bordering vegetative wetland that's off-site. I mean, off beyond the locus of a project. So we have actually a better diversity now than proposed. So over time, we won't have as much herbaceous because it's going to be shaded out. But within the next 10 years, we should have a little bit of a nice mix. One thing that we're all hopefully not going to get burdened with as much, but we have the beech leaf disease and beechwood street being beechwood. We're going to have to watch that. The whole upland areas are gonna be changing. That's not having to do with our restoration proposal, but just a side fact of where we're at.
And how do you propose to protect those saplings from deer and rabbits?
Other than a deer off spray, there isn't really much we can do for that. Sometimes a lot of the restoration projects that I'm involved with haven't had a lot of impact with deer. But sometimes you do get into instances where they do browse on the new vegetation surprisingly and avoid, the plantings that are next door. But I haven't had a case where I've had it devastated from deer, but we can use deer off spray to deter them if we need to.
And certainly during the winter, if there's a snowpack, there's a strong possibility that rodents will ring the tree, eat that new bark off the bottom of it and kill them. So you're going to put a wire cage around the base of each sapling to prevent rodents from doing that?
Well, we weren't proposing that. We're held to the survivability of these plants over the next 2 growing seasons, so, or more. But I haven't had a case where we've had that impact, and it's been so warm we don't get snow, but who knows, we might get a period where we get an extreme storm event. We have a case like we did a few or more years ago when we had 4 or 5 feet of snow. But with the fall planting that we're proposing, I've had really good success with restoration projects planted in the fall. I haven't had a significant plant die off.
Okay. Any comments, further comments from the commission? Has anybody raised their hand in the audience there, Charlotte? I can look myself, I suppose. But...
No, but I do have a question I just got via email of, can we regulate something more than just saplings? I think we still have a few people in the audience, and I believe I can jump in on this. We had previously discussed the size of the trees that we would want to replace. Typically in a lot of our plans, we want to see trees for deciduous to be at least 2 to 3 inches in caliper, and for coniferous trees to be at least 6 to 8 feet in height. That's usually our standard. However, given the, I think the soils, and there's a lot of rocks on the site. So I think, Brad, you said that's not possible to plant those trees in this area. Can you refresh our memory for that as to why we're just proposing saplings versus the more larger tree specimens?
Sure. So when I say sapling, they're all saplings, anything in the wetland realm less than a 5-inch diameter tree. But
yeah.
But on this site, we're proposing 10-gallon and 5-gallon, a mix of sizes for the saplings. It's very stony out here. Going to be difficult to plant, and we can't really just don't want to plan the exact plant locations. It's going to have to be moved around as we plant because it's so stony. So if we were to get a large bald and burlap tree in here that you'd be looking at bringing a small tractor in just to transport it, we'd be blowing up the site by digging a hole, and with all the rock and boulder there, we'd be doing a tremendous amount of harm. So the sizes that are proposed can be brought in by hand and planted by hand. It's not going to be easy. They're going to have to move around and find the planting spots. That's the conditions that we have here, so we're trying to work around it.
And if I may, Rachel Watsky from Watsky Law, on behalf of Joanne Tosca. My understanding as well is that generally, while it is great to have a larger sapling if possible, especially if you don't want to cause more disturbance trying to get them in, this is probably a more efficient use of our time, because we'd be doing more restoration to repair the damage done during the planting of these much larger saplings by bringing in the tractor, as Brad has said. The issue here is trying to resolve what was done and keep it from causing further disturbance to the area, which is, as we saw from those photos, it's already beginning to bounce back fairly quickly. So I believe it's more in the better interests of everyone to just get these plantings in that have a greater chance of success than larger plantings that they might not, the mature plantings wouldn't do as well in this stony area with that amount of disturbance.
Fortunately, I think I'm summarizing everything here. In terms of the trees that were cut down, the old growth and the caliper size, unfortunately, it's very difficult to replace those of the same ecological value within a shorter amount of time. So we are trying to balance that here, I think, with the 2-to-1 replacement and the additional shrub enhancements to try and get, that undergrowth, that will probably pop up first before obviously the trees get that large. So, again, with cases like these, unfortunately, you can't replace the value of those trees, at least in the short term, but hopefully over time, with correct monitoring and reporting, which, I think we should hash out as a commission for the next steps moving forward if nobody has questions about the plan. But yeah, I think we are going to need a solid monitoring plan, and Brad did indicate in his memo to, kind of work that out with the commission.
So in that vein, we're unhappy about the amount of canopy that's been removed. We recognize that it's going to take decades for this to recover to the condition that it was in previously. And I wonder if we can extend the monitoring plan beyond the 3 years. Do we have the authority to do that?
Well, I think we can through an enforcement order. And I think we discussed this last time, but once we agree on the proposed plan, I would recommend we close out the initial enforcement order, which had just required, for the site stabilization and the submission of a planting plan. We can issue a new enforcement order with the approved plan, with any additional monitoring requirements, reports, seasonal dates or things, and how you want, the professionals to communicate with the commission, and how you want me to work with, the professionals and the owner. So that should be specified in a new enforcement order, given those parameters. And then, just emphasizing that whatever parameters we give, they should be very clear, and not just, kind of general. I mean, they don't have to be super specific, in terms of a date and time, but, just in terms of overall deadlines and the years of how we want to monitor this moving forward.
I think we want to feel when the monitoring program is over that there's a high likelihood that these trees will continue to thrive, and they really will eventually replace the missing canopy. And I don't know how long. I would defer to Chris McFarland for an estimate of how long that might take, but I think it's probably going to take more than 3 years.
Sorry,
Yeah,
Rachel.
I think it's going to take quite a bit of time. I don't. Hard to say.
I mean, we obviously can't extend it for 20 years here.
No.
But it as the applicants already pointed out, or Mr. Holmes has already pointed out, this is a tough area in terms of soil, and so these trees are going to have to find their way to the water table through the various cracks and gaps in the bedrock here. And so even though they're planting at 2-to-1, very well could be some significant mortality because they're incapable of reaching a constant source of water.
But I think that you'll know that within 3 years.
Okay.
So
you think 3 years is adequate, Chris?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brad, did you propose for two, for at least for the 2 years for the maintenance, but did you propose 3 years for the total monitoring? Or I think you left it up to the commission, I believe.
Right, usually for wetland replication,
Yeah.
restoration projects propose monitoring and reporting within 2 years, and if it's not
Mhm.
adequate at that second year to extend.
Yeah, it's 75% success on the plantings, I think, after 2 years, correct? Or you need to reevaluate.
Correct.
And so for those 25% failures, what happens?
Actually, in our monitoring proposal, that's what a typical wetland replication project would be, to at least have 75% plant survival. But we've already documented that any saplings or shrubs within the restoration area to be found unviable or dead, they will be replaced with like kind and size. So we're proposing to keep 100%.
Great.
Any further comments from the commission?
Yeah, I'm still in a position of really, well, I feel like the number is short. No replacement in the 100-foot buffer is I guess disappointing. I would say there, if it's not feasible to plant additional trees to replace all that were cut, as an option, there is a tree bank which you could make contribution to allow, it's funds that are solely for the purpose of planting new trees in public space around town. But yeah, I think this is at least the third time we've seen this plan, and the last 2 times I was looking for more trees and shrubs, 4 to 1 shrubs. It's, shrubs are nice, but they don't do they don't do what trees do.
Mr. Holmes, you don't have any trees planted among the shrubs. I sort of am wondering why not? Why are they clustered in two different places, but there's none among the shrubs? Doesn't it make sense to put trees in among the shrubs so that as those trees grow, the shrubs, of course, then are blocked by the canopy and it returns to a more open forest?
Well, in the restoration plan that you have with the aerial imagery, we kind of merged from the original proposal into a canopy kind of scenario. So then we were moving plantings around to kind of fill in canopy areas. The intent is, as I said, because of the difficult planting situation there, things will be moved around, but they're going to be spaced out by professionals. So it's not intended to have shrubs here and then trees here. It would be mixed together so that it's more of a natural habitat.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was looking for, is something that looks at least random to us.
Right, that's the intent. It's to fill it in so it looks natural. It would be all at random. There wouldn't be, the species would be mixed together. They wouldn't be clustered as in one species as compared to another. So, and again, there'll be a professional that would be involved during that planting event.
Okay. Further comments?
Raised for a little bit. Did you have anything else to add to that?
My focus was less on the substance of the restoration plan and more on the how to move steps moving forward. I've looked over the current enforcement order, and I do think it gives you the flexibility to not have to close this out and then issue a new enforcement order. I think this gives you the ability to come to whatever agreement ends up being done on the restoration plan and those specific details, and then have that be governed by this enforcement order, including the monitoring for the next 2 or 3 years as needed. for efficiency's sake, I'm not sure you need to close out the current enforcement order and issue a new one. We're of course happy to work with you with whichever you
Sure.
end up wanting to do. but-
Yeah, I think in talking to my counsel, they said the same thing. I was questioning more of whether or not you could add existing or additional conditions to the currently issued order, or if that can just be, you know what I mean, like putting it in writing about, any additional conditions from what we haven't already specified. So I didn't know if you had to close out. It seems like you had to close out the existing EO and issue a new one with updated conditions, unless we can modify it and just resubmit it to DEP and just keep that as a record.
I'm not sure. I mean, I do think that the findings and the conditions do give you that flexibility to, because it,
Okay.
for the first part of the page 3 of 4, it has that the restoration shall be completed in accordance with the conditions and timetable established by the issuing authority. That doesn't
Okay.
set a specific
Mhm.
deadline or specific conditions. So I believe that that would give you that flexibility to set those conditions without it having to be modified or reissued.
Charlotte, can you clarify what you said about our council? Did they concur in general with Ms. Watsky? That we do, that we can't?
Overall, yes. I mean, we were more asking about, can we keep discussing the mitigation plan under the current order? Because our instructions were that, let me go to the conditions here, that we had selected, this was a condition that was already satisfied, with stabilizing the site with the erosion control and wildlife or wildflower seed mixes. And then these were our other conditions, that it was to be submitted, which again, it was. I think it was 1 or 2 days late, but it was submitted to the commission. And then that would have all of this information, which we have since added to the plan. And yeah, we do say that the restoration shall be completed in accordance with conditions and timetable established by the issuing authority. I don't know, I can't remember if that's actually part of the form or if we wrote that, but it does seem like, it does have flexibility, at least when council said in terms of keeping this EO open to review the plan and not just have it be submitted. But moving forward, if the commission is comfortable with Ms. Watsky's assessment here, to keep this one open with whatever timetables that we set, we could have, Brad obviously update the memo to maybe specify that in writing, and then you can just keep this EO open. So yeah, I think either way would be sufficient. I would just want to clarify anything in writing of any additional monitoring parameters, just so that we have it written somewhere. I know this is a public meeting, but just to have it written somewhere. So we could just have Brad update his memo if that's easier.
So I don't think that it's appropriate that we take legal advice from the applicants.
It's a good point.
I think we need to rely upon our own counsel for this. And as much as I hate to continue this, I'd like to see it wrapped up. It seems to me that we need to be clear on that.
Okay.
So I think that we probably should continue and get a definitive answer from our counsel.
Mhm.
And hopefully we can have a very brief next meeting and move on.
Yeah, I know, we still had, so I guess, Chris, I know you obviously expressed wanting to see more trees, at least in the 100-foot buffer or the tree fund for the town. But, I guess it sounds like we want to obviously set the next stage, but I think we still have some final remaining questions, I guess, to the plan, and whether or not we want to, change anything else or leave it as is, and then maybe ask that the applicant, maybe donate to the town tree fund or something. I don't know what the consensus is there.
Yeah,
Can I-
that's my thought, yeah.
Can I jump in quick? I think I was getting the feeling that we're fairly close. why are we continuing it? If it is for me to update the memo to state the, the 3 years of monitoring, that's easy enough. I can get that to you after. I guess I'm unsure why we need to continue. I think my opinion, I think we're there.
I think it really hinges on whether or not the current enforcement order is flexible enough. In town council's opinion, is flexible enough so that we can continue to work with that, or whether it needs to be closed and open a new one. Now, we've heard from Ms. Watsky, and then she probably has it right, but again, we can't act on the legal advice of the applicant. We really have to ask our own counsel whether this is appropriate.
And I don't know if I hear you on that, but that doesn't have to spend the commission's time. If you're in agreement with the plan, we could vote the plan in, or you could vote the plan in. And then that's the mechanism to enforce the plan is through this enforcement order, or, issue an amendment to it. But I'm just thinking, you don't need to hear this a fourth time unless you want to. I'm just thinking, it sounds like we're already there. And it just, how do you implement it? We're already proposing to implement it. The question would be, is you keep it under this enforcement, or do you issue a new one or amend it? But to have an approved plan in place would be valuable, in my opinion.
Brad, when would you plant these trees? If when the plan is approved?
Probably after September 15th, September 30th, depending on what we're looking at for summer heat.
Excuse me, Brad, if I can just chime in on that, the landscape contractor that we've been discussing implementing this plan with had recommended the end of October. He felt that would be the best success rate to do the planning. And then, as I mentioned to Charlotte, the other concern is that we want to make sure that the conditions on the site are dry. We can make the best plans, but if it's wet, there's no reason to disturb things and make it worse. But what Paragon Landscape had suggested was to do that either the middle of October or towards the latter part.
Yeah, anytime after that summer heat would be best. I agree with you.
So Charlotte.
Muted, Charlotte.
Sorry, give me 1 second. I was actually trying to see if I could get counsel on the phone.
Okay, that'd be good.
Sorry, give me 1 second.
Yeah, that'd be good. Be nice to clear this up so we don't have to continue.
Yeah. And if she is able to get counsel on the phone, that's excellent. We're definitely
Sorry about
open. You back?
Yep, sorry, I left a message. We'll see if they call back in the next couple minutes, but I agree. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, obviously, we're sure that you're right in terms of, it seems like based on this language, we do have the flexibility to, establish the parameters, and then, with the conditions maybe written in Brad's memo, and then, again, it's written in writing here that it shall be completed in accordance with the conditions and timetable established by the issuing authority. But, I think we just want that assurance from council that that's the appropriate step moving forward. To kind of close this out officially, at least in one regard with the show cause hearings. So,
Yeah, of course.
Is there a condition we can create that enables us to close this one and open a new one without do this administratively?
I'm trying to think. Maybe you could potentially vote tonight on, if we're satisfied with the plan, or if we want any additional, measures to work with the town for, any additional tree plantings. We could vote to either, it's kind of tough for the public record. You either vote, you vote to keep the enforcement order open with the set parameters, or you vote to close it out and issue a new one. So I don't know if we can do like both in one I don't know. It might-
It's possible, and again, I know you don't want to take legal advice from someone who's not town council. But what we've had or what I've dealt with in other matters in other towns is the commission has voted to give the staff member the authority to basically hit approval on a plan. And I guess either close out the enforcement order or issue a new one, depending, or leave it open as ends up being decided on. If that's something that's an option, I could see us or trying to close this out as best we can here, and either an approval or requiring or Brad to make a specific revision to the memo so that that is on the record that we are in agreement on the proposed restoration plan. And then the enforcement order issue is sort of a side issue that gets handled after you're able to reach.
Yeah. Actually, now that you mentioned that, what we could potentially do is the commission could vote, to, like you said, to delegate to the agent as to whether or not, to determine whether or not the current order shall stay open with any additional conditions that we specify here tonight. And then upon confirmation from council, the agent will either close out the existing EO and issue a new one. And then the EO would just have to be authorized by the commission at the next meeting. So you wouldn't necessarily need to keep the show cause open, but I would put it as an agenda item to authorize the new enforcement order if we had to issue a new one. You know what I mean? Like, I can definitely do that. I think it would just have to be ratified by the commission at the next public meeting. Kind of like an emergency certification, but I can double check with council on that, but that seems like it would make sense. But and again, if the commission's comfortable with just continuing till we get an answer, I mean, we can do that too. I'm just trying to think of a way to close it out in one thing.
I think, in my opinion, I'd like to see this resolved administratively, this last detail resolved administratively, if possible. And if the commissioners are comfortable with that, then I'd recommend that we do make a motion to close this.
Tom, before you make that motion, you said this last issue, but I think Chris McIntyre's has an issue as well, that we can either consider or not consider, but I think what he's suggesting is that a 2-to-1 replacement of trees and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what you're saying is a 2-to-1 replacement of mature saplings, mature trees for saplings, in your opinion is not adequate, correct?
Yeah, well, it's more so the they didn't address the trees in the 100-foot buffer, which is and there's we go back and forth about the stumps that were not from the event we were alerted to when we discovered the older stumps. I'm not even really referring to those. I'm just talking at least about the trees in the 100-foot.
Do we know what the count in the 100-foot buffer is? I mean, I think we went through this once.
Yeah, I mean, it was a dozen or
There's
so.
8 to 10 in the 100-foot buffer, not from old stump previous removal. I think it was 8 to 10 in the 100-foot buffer. But Brad or Joe or someone, please correct me if that's not right. I can pull up the other plan that they had we had requested for the location of all the stumps and try to count them.
And
We went through that last time. I think the heart of the question is, are there enough trees here?
Right.
And I think that we would ask the applicant whether they're willing to add some more trees. It's not clear. I mean, none of us have really indicated how we're going to vote on this. And I would say that perhaps satisfying Commissioner McIntyre's, some or all of Commissioner McIntyre's concerns would probably be a wise thing to do.
I can go over what the commission why we maintain restoration within the BVW and the inner buffer zone. Theoretically, we could submit a notice of intent to the Conservation Commission to cut and clear vegetation beyond 50 feet between the 50 and 100-foot buffer zone. So therefore, we wouldn't propose a restoration plan beyond 50 feet because the commission would look unfavorably to a proposal if we were to come forward with the commission to propose activity between the 50 and the 100-foot, because you'd say, hey, wait a minute, you guys can't do anything on that lot because you restored plantings in there. So, the commission does obviously look for restoration in the BVW. You have strict standards for the inner buffer zone. There are no standards, I don't believe, for work between the 50 and the 100, other than, no adverse impact to the inner buffer zone and wetland. So we've maintained that proposal between the inner and the BVW. One thing that I did state, and I don't want to get in an adversarial kind of position with the commission and go in a negative stance, but we did review your regulations, and the regulations, the only thing that the regulations calls out a 2-to-1 ratio is if we were proposing BVW alteration, we would need to come up with a 2-to-1 ratio for that alteration. We're not proposing that here. We're proposing restoration. There are no standards for tree numbers or revegetation numbers in your regulations. Again, I don't want to get into an argument that could go the wrong way, but I think that we've tried to meet the commission the best that we can. We're at a 2-to-1 ratio for work in the wetland and inner buffer zone. We're even including shrubs and wildlife habitat enhancements. So that's where how we crafted the proposal, and that's why we didn't go beyond the 50-foot buffer zone.
Well,
It has been over 20 minutes. It sounds like we're getting close to potentially figuring this out, but are you okay to keep going since we made a good track record for most of the night?
yeah, I mean, this is our last thing. So I think it's well, it's not quite our last one. And if we're going to deal with the last one, it could go a while too. A very similar situation where the applicant has basically clear cut within the 50-foot buffer and other things. So very similar, could go on a long time as this one has. So yes, we are sort of up against our time. We have some concerns that the applicant is unwilling to address, it sounds like. I don't know how the commission would vote. If the applicant wants us to have a vote, then we can go ahead and do that, I would say. The conditions that we would establish would be to have our town council review this and, if necessary, issue another enforcement order, close this one and do another one. That would require another meeting, I think, or maybe we can do it administratively. So that, I guess that's where we're at.
Charlotte, would you read there's a comment, could you just read it into the record?
So Jen Meckler from 490 Beechwood. If planting is not to be done until October, is there time to see if more trees can be added to the plan? So yeah, thank you, Jen. That's we're definitely going back and forth on this, and it seems like some commissioners are still looking for some more tree mitigation, but we might find a path forward with a little bit more clarification from council, especially when it comes to closing out this enforcement order, and or potentially keeping it open with additional conditions. I'm definitely flexible to to do what the commission thinks. But, you know, I'm happy to try and take care of it administratively. And like I said, if we do have to close out the other order and issue a new one, you know, that can, I would hope that can be done either administratively, or if it has to be done in a public setting, we would keep this on the agenda for next week. So at least for now, from what it sounds like, Chris McIntyre, sorry, Chris, would you be comfortable if I followed up with council about the 100-foot buffer and or donating to the tree fund? And would an answer from council help you make a decision, or help the rest of the commission make a decision to do this? Or do we want to close this out now with me investigating it administratively and potentially issuing a new or enforcement order?
I'm not sure what your question is. What would council? have
Sorry,
to
I
do?
guess, so it sounds like, you know, obviously it seems like we're looking for more information from council on at least whether or not to keep the enforcement order open and issue a new one. So I
Mhm.
guess additionally, would you like me to clarify with council about any potential mitigation requirements in the 100-foot buffer as well, based on our regulations and bylaws? And or.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're gonna tell you that it's not a requirement, because Mr. Holmes is right about what our,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's open to interpretation what disturbing the outer buffer zone can look
Right.
like. Cutting dozen large adult trees is, in my opinion, definitely a negative impact on the buffer zone.
Yeah.
And so, you know, there's, if they don't want to plant trees there, that's, you know, that's fine. That's the plan that they've submitted, and they're sticking with it. That's why I suggested the other option about the tree bank. But I'm not satisfied with the tree count, and I think I've made that clear, so.
Can we hear from other commissioners whether they feel satisfied? Is that appropriate? Let me put it this way. If any other commissioners have comments or questions regarding adding additional trees, could you speak up, please?
I'm gonna speak for Eric Eisenhower, who's not here tonight. He too was a believer that there should be extra trees. I mean, you know, this is, you know, we're looking at something after the fact. Our regulations don't actually, they don't actually address what to do after the fact. They address what to do when things are submitted appropriately. And this is a case where that's not what happened. And I think that Chris is making a valid point. We had a forest and now we don't. And it was in a resource area and now it's gone. And you know, you can use the 50 as the limit of disturbance. You can use the 100 as limited disturbance. Doesn't really matter, it's gone. And really what it comes down to is in my lifetime, that forest will not be back. Maybe if Charlotte's lucky in her lifetime, it will be. But the question is, you know, how many trees do you have to plant to create a forest and to come back and to be something? And I think Chris has a valid point that you know, to address only the 50 is kind of looking at half of the puzzle and not the whole puzzle. So, you know, I last week I kind of looked at this plan and I thought, well, you know, it's something. It's not what was there. It's something. And you know, the more Chris pounds it home, it makes me feel that more than something is necessary here. And if it can't be here, then although it can be here, it's just that it's not being thought of that way. So I think some additional trees would be worthwhile. And when when you're planting a 5-gallon sapling, I mean, Paragon happens to be the most expensive landscaper in the county. If you use someone other than Paragon, you could get 3 times the number of trees at half the cost. And that I think that's something worth considering.
Any other commissioners wish to weigh in on this?
Well, I also would like to see the trees in the second half of the 100. I think that section is also important in this case and in all the cases actually that we review. Sometimes we just think about the 50, and we allow things in the outer half, but that outer half is there to protect the 50. So I do think it's important to have the other trees, and I would like to see them also in that outer 50.
Thank you. Will, you have?
Yeah, same here. Like Chris said, seeing as this is after the fact, I think that's probably the most important detail here, and I'd like to see additional trees as well.
So with that said, I would recommend that the applicant revisit their plan. We can have a vote, but it doesn't look good.
What I can do as well, just to try and pave the way here, Brad did bring up some interesting points about our regulations. So I think a thorough review with council specifically on the outer buffer zone, considering obviously that people have stated that this is an after the fact violation and alteration to the buffer zone without prior approval, I think it might be worth me having a more thorough review with council about a good step for how we can try to come to a consensus here on the outer buffer. But it sounds like the commission is, at least for the BVW, that I think there's no question there. The 50-foot buffer, it seems like people are satisfied with that as well. So I think so far the plan, obviously seems to be meeting commissioner expectations for those areas of jurisdiction. And it's really just leaving the outer buffer and what is most feasible for everybody and what's most reasonable and also within our jurisdiction and enforcement powers. So I'm happy to have that conversation with council, and hopefully I can get a very clear response. I may even ask council to obviously be present at the next one. I will admit sometimes that's a little difficult to do, but I will try my best to make it happen so that we can have town council weighing in on this to hopefully close it out. Because, as we've mentioned before, I think time is of the essence here. And I would recommend that we don't keep dragging this on, just because I think planting in the fall should definitely be all of our goal. And I don't think that's in question here. I am worried the longer we debate this, we may or may not see that happen, especially if the owner decides to look at other options for contractors. And they may or may not be able to do the work or find the plants. So, I think you guys have heard Brad, Joe, and Rachel. I think it sounds like we want a continuance. I will get as much information from council as I possibly can, and I will try my best to have them on the call so we can come to a final consensus and close out the order and or issue a new EO with any, monitoring steps or any additional conditions that we would like to see happen. Does that sound okay to everyone?
So to summarize, we have two issues.
Sorry, that was a long summary.
To summarize, we have two issues. The first one is, it sounds like we do need to consult with town council. And the larger issue is whether we have an adequate number of trees here. So I encourage the applicant to revisit their plan. Coming back with something where there were more trees would certainly improve the odds of getting this issue resolved.
Can I also ask the commission as well?
Sorry, but it's up to the applicant to decide whether or not they want to continue or not.
I was also going to ask the commission as well that if we do continue this to August 3rd, can the applicant, Brad, and his team have more time to work on the plan depending on when I can talk to council? Because we have that 7-day, revised document requirement, but can we consider waiving that so I can get as much time to talk to council, relay that to, Joe and Brad and Rachel, and see what the next steps are, at least from our jurisdiction, and then they can update the plan based on that input?
So are you proposing that the continuance be for not to the
August
next?
3rd. Yeah, but for the revised document submission, normally per our regulations, we want documents for hearings 7 days in advance. So that would be by next Thursday. That may or may not be enough time for me to get adequate time with council to review the regulations, give them the input, have them update the plan based on a consensus with the 100-foot buffer, and then bring that back to the commission for August 3rd.
Well, I would say that your ability to talk to council is not part of the 7-day submission.
No, it isn't. It isn't.
So as long as you can talk to council before August 3rd, then I don't think that that's an issue. And I would hope that our council would be available sometime between now and August 3rd.
Yeah, no, they will.
It comes down to if the applicant is going to revise their plan, whether they have sufficient time to submit a new planting plan to us within that 7-day cutoff period.
Tom, I think what she's saying is if they don't get back fast enough, can they submit the plan closer to the hearing date than 7 days? And I would think that would be okay.
We fine with that.
Yeah, then let's set a limit on that. We don't want to get it at 5:30 on August 3rd, 5:30 PM. I mean, we do need to have sufficient time for all of us to, excuse me. Sorry, we do need to have sufficient time for commissioners to look at it. So I would say 48 hours.
Yes, 48 hours.
Okay. All right, the ball's in the applicant's court. Continue or not?
Joe, would you like to continue?
Sure. I think that's probably in everybody's best interest to see if we can come to a resolution. I'm not sure exactly what we're going to do, but I think it would be helpful to have some time and have the opinion from town council and review it with Rachel.
Great.
Okay.
Just so that I can know this, I know that Charlotte would be going back and forth with our team based on town council's comments. I know that not every commission wants to have communication between council, but if town council wants to talk with me or with Matt Watsky, we are open to doing so.
Okay.
Great.
I'll let you know. Thank you.
Okay. So with that, we're going to continue this hearing until August 3rd. Okay. We don't need to vote on that, do we, Charlotte?
No.
Didn't think so. Okay. So finally,
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night.
finally, it does not look like anybody's here for 76 Lamberts, or are they?
So I wanted to keep this one on the agenda because we have been, dragging this out. So Chris
Wait,
McFarland.
could I just correct your
Yeah.
comment there? We haven't been dragging this out.
Sorry. Yep.
Really?
Thank you. Yep.
The
Yep.
owner's been dragging
So-
it out.
I've spoken to council more than several times about this, and unfortunately, I'm still getting the same answer that we are waiting for a certificate of compliance and an as-built. We do not have the enforcement authority to force a COC for the applicant at a certain time under the Wetlands Protection Act or our bylaws until we potentially revise our bylaws. So we really do just have to keep a fire under the applicant's feet, that we are obviously anxious to see the final plans. I have not heard from the applicant in a couple weeks, but the last update that I got in early July or late June is, he has, again, to refresh your memory, since hired a new engineer because his old engineer retired. He's been working on the plans. I had previously communicated with this engineer over the phone via email, given him all the COC requirements. I have given the applicant the same requirements. Per commissioner recommendations, I will definitely be walking the site either before or after I received the COC. And I did recommend to the applicant that if any commissioners do want to walk the site as part of my final inspection or before, it is highly recommended that he be open to that. And he did seem to be open to that. So I will reach out to him again for another update. And maybe after, if you guys would like, I can request a site visit before our next meeting and just see where we're at in the game. Because, unfortunately, as I've been told multiple times, we do not have the enforcement jurisdiction to force a COC any sooner than at least before the permit expires. Then after, when the permit expires, then perhaps maybe we can start requiring that the applicant close it out. It is a part of the order of conditions that a certificate of compliance be filed when the work is done, but unfortunately doesn't specify the time frame. So that's really where we're at right now. And I'm sorry that it's a disappointing update. I know we do have some people in the audience who are here for that as well, but I can't force it. But I can still continue.
Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
There is an order of condition that deals with plant viability, right? That
Yes.
the planting has to last for a certain amount of time.
Yeah, so we have a
when
standard condition.
when does that clock start ticking and when does that?
So the planting was definitely finished for the most part the last fall, and a little bit was, sounds like it was touched up in the spring of this year. But most of the planting, I would say like 99% of the planting was done fall of 2022. And we did say that we have a template condition that planting shall survive 3 full growing seasons and or be replaced by the applicant. So the order definitely, we issue that as a continuing condition as well for COCs. But yeah, so we do have a requirement that the plantings have to survive 3 full growing seasons. So that would be, in a little, couple of years, but.
And what, okay, so that's a ways off. What
Yeah.
about, I mean, our final inspections only
When I receive a
done
COC.
when there's a request for a COC?
That's under our
So-
regulations. Yeah.
So if I were an applicant and I had to put in, well, now I'm jumping to stormwater, but I mean, there's no, I don't understand why there's no, I mean, we know there are changes to this plan.
Yeah.
And if I got a permit and then I cut down a bunch of trees in the 50-foot buffer, but never came to you for a COC, you're saying there's no opportunity to enforce something?
I think so let's say, for example, none of the work is ever done as part of an order of conditions. That doesn't necessarily mean that the applicant is at fault, because sometimes projects just don't happen. However, if this was like an enforcement order or something, obviously that's a different case. But we could definitely enforce the special conditions under the order of conditions as well. And I can pull those up again if you guys want to look at them. One of them unfortunately isn't relevant because
So deviations from the plan cannot be enforced. Is that what you're saying?
no, they can, trust me, they can, but at least until I get the as-built as well, because I know we had concerns about whether the sports court was moved closer to the 50-foot buffer than originally permitted. That is not specified obviously on the plan, but until I get an as-built to see where it is on the plan, I can't, I can definitely eyeball it, but as we know, and as we've seen before with this permit, not me, but previous agents, that the 50-foot buffer stakes have been moved or fallen down or got knocked over. So at least for if the sports court was built closer than originally permitted, that is a violation, and that is something that we do not obviously have to issue a COC and could potentially go to enforcement there. But, you know, with all the other deviations from the approved plan that we approved in November 2020, you know, as I've said before, the applicant has supposedly, you know, sent me all this correspondence about, you know, working with the previous agents about a lot of these deviations. And I know that doesn't sit well with a lot of us, but at least for that, those deviations I can account for, at least in writing communication. The only thing I can't confirm right now is whether or not the sports court is closer than originally permitted. And I usually determine that through a site inspection with the as-built.
But there's, I mean, I think I've given you a number of I've given you a list at various times of other
Yeah.
modifications from the plan.
Mhm.
But what you're saying is that as until they submit something, modifications to the plan, I mean, besides for the sport court, you're saying the other ones are not enforceable?
No, so sorry. So there's been a lot of changes to this plan since we approved it on November 16th, 2020. I've tried my best to type up a summary, which I'm happy to send around again, of the history of since we approved the order of conditions in November 2020 to when a lot of those changes to the plan occurred. Some of them were submitted through the building permit. A lot of others were mostly communicated via email to Jeff. And actually, when I present, you know, COCs to you guys, I do note those, that whether or not those changes were previously approved by my predecessors. But so that is what I'm trying to explain, that for any other change that was made to the previously approved plan that was already approved by Jeff Summers or Steve Ivas, I don't know if we can hold that against the applicant now for evaluating a COC, but for anything that wasn't previously discussed, previously approved by my predecessors or by me, the building inspector obviously doesn't count with these permits. I don't know, you know, anything that wasn't previously discussed and approved with the agents, that is enforceable. And that is what we'll evaluate for compliance. But, you know, obviously when I get this COC, I'm going to have to obviously give you guys a slideshow of everything that was changed from when the commission approved it and whether or not those changes were discussed with the previous agents and approved by them. Because that I don't think I can undo, you know, because we've seen permits like that. I think there was a dock on Border Street where there were a lot of changes and you guys saw the correspondence from Jeff Summers, and obviously I didn't agree with it, but he had previously approved it. So those are the changes that I'm referencing. But obviously any other change that hasn't been communicated in writing to me or to my predecessors, that is what we can evaluate as part of a COC, and whether or not the project is in compliance. So that, for example, that would be if the sports court is closer than previously permitted, or if you didn't plant all the trees.
Charlotte, we do have an April 2nd near map photo
Yeah.
of the sports court.
Mhm.
And it is possible to georeference the plan that we approved and overlay it here in near map, and we can find out rather quickly whether they've encroached on the 50.
I mean, yeah, we can do that too. I'm just telling you guys, per our regulations and bylaw, I do have to do a final inspection upon receipt of an as-built. So, you know, I mean, we can investigate it now, but the as-built is going to be the stamped documentation from the applicant on whether or not he's in compliance with the plan. And if they give that to us and it's not right, you know, it hurts the applicant. So I guess my question is, do we want to measure it on the aerial imagery and make our guess? Or do we want to wait for the applicant to give us that stamped documentation that may help or hurt him?
I think the forest on Beechwood will probably regenerate faster than getting an
Yeah.
as-built and a request for a COC.
Probably, but
So,
yeah.
So what I'm suggesting is that we would have evidence that they're in violation.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to do a thorough review of the overlay of all the aerial imagery, but I guess like what I'm,
Charlotte,
at least from the lines on the property and stuff, I get all those, sorry.
Charlotte, We don't need to do an overview of everything. All we need to do is georeference their plan and overlay it on one photo in their map. We're not
Mhm.
talking about, launching a satellite here. It's
No, I
fairly,
know, I'm just,
fairly straightforward. And if we see that the sports court has overlaps the 50-foot buffer, as the applicant has shown the 50-foot buffer on their submitted map, then we have sufficient cause to move forward, I think.
okay,
Where's the issue?
okay,
Without a COC,
yeah,
we would have, I think we would have sufficient evidence that they're in violation and then move forward on that basis.
okay. I'm a little, that's a
Okay.
great point. I'm just a little hesitant to do that because all of the imagery, the maps, they all show different property lines and borders, and they're not all accurate with what the plan looks like versus what those plots, and delineations on the aerial imagery. Because remember, we've seen Mass Mapper, assessors, near map, the site plan, they all show slightly different configurations of
That's
that.
true. We're not looking at the assessor's parcel here. We're looking at the locations that they have said are the 50-foot buffer. This is their data we're using
Right.
to compare against a georeferenced map. So, I mean, obviously, if it's a foot over, we wouldn't be in a very strong position, but in fact, if they're in gross violation of this, we'll be able to tell.
Yeah. Okay, I
So,
will definitely need your help on that.
so,
I don't know if I have all the gears to-
here's what I'd like you to do is dig up that, the very plan that we approved and send it to me.
Okay.
And I'll do this.
Okay. I'm happy to learn. I'm not trying to like fight you guys on this. I'm just like, again, I'm used to going with the official documents I receive, so.
Like I say,
Yeah, if we want to get creative, definitely. I mean, aerial imagery is used in enforcement, so.
if it is a gross violation, we'll be able to determine that. If it's,
Yeah.
we might not be so sure, and I don't
Yeah.
think that's the issue, but if they're in there by 10 feet,
Mhm.
we'll know it.
It'll also help us with questioning the accuracy of the as-built if and when we receive it. Because I know we had questions about that and whether or not we wanted or could ask for a third party to do an as-built.
Right.
But at least if we're not allowed to do that, we can do our own investigation and show it and tell them to prove us wrong.
Well,
I think that'll actually be a good tool for the final inspection too.
it's just sufficient evidence that they're in violation. And
Yeah.
and we obviously would go to town council, but we could issue, instead of show cause, we'd be in an enforcement order.
Mhm. Yeah,
And it's a whole new ballgame. So
no, that's true.
let's do it. This guy stalled long enough.
Yeah, and I really don't know I don't know what's going on, but something tells me that there might be a good possibility as the reason to why engineers are taking so long is maybe they don't want to put their stamp on an as-built. Especially if they have done that survey and it's, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just speculating here. Obviously, I don't want to spit.
I'm looking at an image of this and
Yeah.
there's all kinds of there's a whole bunch of trees planted in a row on the outside of that fence that are probably in the wildlife, or maybe in the wildlife easement. I don't remember the 50-foot buffer being straight as a fence. So let's have a look at that. And he is right up against the solar array that's there. That is a big sports court. I mean, we're already suspicious. Let's take a closer look at this.
Okay.
I can't do it.
What was that?
I'm not going to do it before I go on vacation.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay,
Good.
all right.
But you
Take a
can
magnifying glass to it.
send me the plan before I go.
Yes, I will send you the plan probably after this meeting.
All right, thank you.
It's 11/16/2020 because I know that date very well.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay, so now we're moving on to reorganization
So,
commission.
yeah.
You have,
we do have a few people in the audience for the COCs. Do we want to?
oh yeah, let's help them out.
First?
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll move down to certificates of compliance, NOI 22-06, the 3A sewer improvement. I had presented this to you guys last time. The site, for the most part, is in compliance, with the exception of a couple things that I had noted. They still had to take some silt sacks out of the catch basins, and they had to repave the road twice because it was inadequate per Mass DOT standards. In doing that, they had covered one of the catch basins with asphalt in front of Cohasset Imports. They have since taken that out and restored the catch basin. So they've done the things that I had noted. Just to note that, again, there was some prior tree removal work that was done by National Grid, but it wasn't done by the applicant. So that was noted on site. But other than that, I had no other major deviations. And I would recommend, if we issue a COC, we should put condition 40 of no herbicides, et cetera, because that is specifically for the applicant. The Mass DOT may or may not be exempt from that, but for the applicant specifically, we can issue that as an ongoing condition. And there were no proposed plantings, so I don't know if we need to suggest the 41 condition about the 3 full growing seasons. I would just do the no herbicides, et cetera.
Mhm.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay. And want a motion?
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for NOI 22-06 for improvements. Do I have a second?
Second,
Roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McFarland,
Chris McFarland, aye.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Tom Bell, aye. That vote passes 5-0-0.
Awesome. All right. And we have, I'll promote them right now, but we have Brendan from Merrill Engineers Land Surveyors, and Bob Shepard, who is he was the applicant for the original stormwater permit. So I had presented this to you guys last time. I'd noted some deviations, but the one that the commission seemed to be concerned about was the slight drainage change. There were supposed to be, I can pull up the as-built plan, but there were supposed to be splash pads and overflow pipes installed in both the northerly and southerly infiltration system, and they had done the overflow grate instead. And so I think the commission just wanted to hear more information about that, or to see the splash pads and the outflow pipes extended. So I guess, Brendan, can you, you had provided some slightly updated calculations and documentation explaining that change, but can you summarize for the commission that change was made and why it may or may not still work for the site?
Sure. So I did model the infiltration systems with grates in the top as opposed to the horizontal pipes. And so the flows are, even though they're a little bit increased from what was approved, we're still below the flows for existing conditions. I'm not quite sure the reason why it was done, but also as well as the patio in the rear of the property was supposed to be about 1,400 square feet, and that was just under 1,000 square feet. So it was about 500 or 600 square feet less impervious in the back of the house. So that helped the numbers as well. I mean, I always design them as I always like to see a horizontal pipe coming out of these infiltration systems because they're easy to control that way. But it was constructed with the grates on the top, and like I said, I modeled it, and the numbers still come out less than existing for the site.
So it's understood that the numbers still work. I think one of the thoughts when you showed or when we had the conversation and where the discharge was is that it gave opportunity for like a bigger area of flatter land that would allow some of this water to infiltrate rather than run immediately down towards the driveway or down towards the the neighbor's property. So I mean, that was a bigger concern to me than it was that the fact that the numbers were not going to work. I think you had already said they were, and we felt comfortable with that, but you know, the one infiltration, it's gonna flow right down, and most of the water is gonna head down the driveway. And I think where we had, if I remember correctly, where we had it, it gave it a little more time to infiltrate rather than run right down the driveway. And the other one went over to kind of that flat knoll, which kept it from rushing right down to the neighbor's property. So
Yeah, I mean, I know, but if you think about it, now you're using the entire, you know, volume of the infiltration systems all the way to the top of it, you know, with these grates on the top. So it's actually a little better, I think, scenario. Technically, the infiltration system, the smaller one, in what we call the front yard, if you take that out, the numbers still work. The numbers actually work better. We don't even need that for runoff. We really just need that for the Pitconk Drive treating the pavement and for infiltration to get our recharge for the site. So I actually took that one out of the model, and actually the numbers are even less than, you know, what they are with the system there. And you know, the direct pipe out of them, I think, is going to give you more, you know, with the pipes, you know, coming out in the lawn area, you know, now it's coming out at a I think it is probably a slower rate, and it's getting dispersed over a lawn area as opposed to a pipe directing, you know, like where Charlotte has the little red circle there, you know, adjacent to the driveway there as well. You know, I think it's a better situation discharging in the middle of the lawn, in my estimation. And we are actually in the process of working with the abutter, Norbert Hermans. So we're in the process of putting together a common drive. So we'll be back to you for a common driveway for basically I hate to say a roadway, but a driveway, a more elaborate driveway that's going to come up and be proposed for the 3 dwellings that'll be constructed on the other side of the driveway.
So it seems as if you've met all the requirements of, more than met them, the requirements for infiltration and runoff.
Yes.
And you don't think there's an issue of discharge from the smaller infiltration chamber onto the driveway then to stream down the driveway?
I'm sorry, what was that? What was that comment?
Well, it's, if I understand you right, I'm looking at Charlotte's red marker in the circle. I'm not quite sure what that means. It sounds like.
Sorry, I was trying to show the direction of where the outflow pipes and splash pads were on the original plan.
Oh, I see. Okay. But
Not exact, but the general location, yes.
but now this isn't a closed system anymore. Is that right? You've got an open grate as your inlet, and when the chamber is full, it's going to then just stop accepting more water and flowing over the lawn there. Is that how this works?
Yes.
Or-
Yes, there's a 4-inch, I mean, a 6-inch round grate on the top of the field. And sometimes we do design them that way, more of in a flatter area where we don't have the grade to daylight. And like I said, it's easier to design it that way, but sometimes in a flatter section, we'll put the grate on the top of the field.
Yeah.
So that the water just spouts out of the top when it gets to when it reaches that.
Yeah. Yeah. So that increases your storage just by a little bit too, as you said.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, it seems like it's a fairly reasonable system.
So are these infiltration systems, is the grading on these infiltration systems not shown? Or are they down at the lowest elevation?
What do you mean by that?
Well, you've got a slope over the top of the infiltration system. So, but the infiltration system is not put in at an angle, it's put in flat.
Yes, that is correct.
So is it at the lowest? So if you look at the bigger one, you have a grade of 29 as the lowest grade on there.
Yeah.
So is there a foot of fill and then you hit the top of the chamber?
Yes, the minimum cover is a foot over the.
Okay, so that grade on the top is actually a pipe, a riser. Because it's not at 29, it's at 30 and a half,
Yes,
right? So it's a riser.
yes, yeah, it's a
Okay.
foot and a half riser or so.
Okay, all right.
But level with the grade, right?
Yes, yeah, I'd like to have them, as I told the installer, to put them just below the, the grass grade, so you don't want to hit them with a mower or anything like that, obviously.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Like I said, we've designed them before like this, and they work out pretty well. Mostly, like I said, I do them in on a flat area where there's no place to daylight a pipe. Then you really have no choice other than to put them, coming out of the top.
All right.
So do we have any other comments?
The only thing I'm going to note, and this is something I'm working with Bob and Brendan on, is moving forward, we've been requiring the long-term operation and maintenance plan to be recorded by the registry. That's in our regulations. But I have hit a little snag with land court. I need to provide additional documentation from the town in order for them to accept the long-term operation and maintenance plans on land court side. And unfortunately, this property is one of those. So if the commission's okay with, if they're satisfied with the as-built conditions and they're comfortable with issuing a COC, I can just follow up with Bob and Brendan about what to do whenever the town provides the right documentation for land court to take them. They're particularly difficult to deal with, unfortunately.
Land court or the town?
Land court. Land
Oh.
court.
Oh,
Not
okay.
gonna purge it. But yeah, so that's just a pending item for this, which, if you guys are okay with that, I'm happy to just work on the back end with Bob and Brendan on.
Yep, sounds good.
So I'll then, unless there's more to say about this by anyone, I'll make a motion that we approve this certificate of compliance for stormwater permit 2128-98 or at 98 Howard Gleason Road. Do I have a second?
Second,
Roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McFarland,
Chris McFarland, aye.
Chris McIntyre,
McIntyre, aye.
Tom Bell, aye. This passes 5-0-0.
Great, thank you very much.
Welcome.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Good
all.
You're welcome.
Okay, what's next?
Can we do the liaison stuff without Eric? Like, if we were to appoint him to any positions, or do you guys want to table that?
Yeah, let's wait.
Okay. That's easy.
48-hour updates. Anything?
I have a few of them. Does anybody else have others?
I don't. Okay. Good.
You guys know about your ethics training for those who have to redo it. So 80 Black Horse Lane, I was out for an inspection at 90 Black Horse Lane. and I noticed a pipe sticking up out of the ground. There was an excavator from working on the patio and pool work in the back, but it was clear that they had installed an infiltration system in the 50-foot buffer partially or entirely. That was not a part of the approved plan. So I am hearing the accounts as we speak. I spoke to a lot of people this week, and we are doing a site visit next Tuesday to discuss what happened, because supposedly, you know, he said, she said, all this. I'm trying to figure that out, but I have said consistently, this is a violation of the permit for the order conditions and for the stormwater. And the, you know, the commission will obviously be looking for additional action on the applicant's part. So once I have more information, I will probably be issuing, you know, a violation letter if you guys still want to show cause hearing, unless you guys want me to just update you. But, you know, I told the contractor, this has been a complicated site, switching over contractors, but I told them, I understand why you did it, but you did it without permission. So
wasn't the silt sock at the 50-foot buffer?
yes, it was at the edge of the 50-foot buffer. It's been there for 80 and 90 Black Horse Lane, delineating just outside of the 50-foot buffer. So we did allow work in the 50-foot buffer as part of the original plan. The pool is just outside of it, but there was some overdig and some other, you know, minor installations for the pool and the patio in the 50-foot buffer. We had accounted for a trench that was supposed to go around the patio, partially within the 50. So there definitely was going to be drainage there from those impervious surfaces, but not a subsurface system. So again, I mean, if they had to make that change, I get why they did it, but they did it without written prior authorization. And again, it's the 50-foot buffer as well.
And we wouldn't have allowed it, so.
Yeah, I mean, so, you know, again, it's like, you know, yeah. So
Take-
I will,
Take pictures, please.
What's
yep,
the address?
yep. 80 Black Horse Lane. This was new, these were new construction at 80 and 90. I think we approved them in like 2020.
Which by
Mm-hmm.
the way, should never have been approved by planning. Actually, no, I don't think they went to planning. I think they went directly to the building department, and they should never have been approved because they don't have frontage.
Unfortunately, they were partially in Riverfront too. Yeah. Oh, and there's I didn't put it on, yep, 48 hour, and right next door at 70 Black Horse, whatever it is that they're doing, I saw vegetation disturbance and what looked like a truck going to that back greenhouse. I don't know if they're installing utilities or whatever, but again, without permission, so they're also going to be getting a letter. So sometimes my site visits are fun and I find things I'm not supposed to. I found that I wasn't supposed to. Has anyone, you guys know the yacht club at the end of Howard Gleason? I was at 150 Howard Gleason for a consultation yesterday for a potential future permit. One of the walls, and I confirmed with aerial imagery, it's right behind where the yacht club is. It's on like the salt marsh side. There was an old like seawall or concrete retaining wall that was bordering the property. It looked like it had been recently redone because it was bright white. And I was like, is that new? So I looked at it on the aerial imagery, and it looks like between April 2023 and I think August 2022, they either, I don't know if they just, you know, repaired it and just fixed up the cracks or something. But, you know, again, either way, it happened right up against a salt marsh. So I don't know if they changed anything.
Oh,
Do
yeah.
you guys want to show cause for that? Or just a violation letter?
Well, I think we need to understand what they did.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. I'll send him a letter.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, you're right.
Bring them in when Tom's back.
yeah. Okay. August 24th, whatever that is. Okay. And then 183 and 193 Sawyer. I got an anonymous letter in the mail about someone doing something near the wetlands in the back of those properties. The building inspector, we don't have a building permit or anything, but he was there today and he didn't see anything being done. It's a little tricky for me to just walk a site without permission, so I'll try my best to see if I can see anything from the school because it's across the street from the school. But yeah, the person unfortunately just didn't specify what it was. They just said there's construction activity potentially at 183 or 193 Sawyer. So I was advised to not obviously walk the property without permission. The building inspector can do that, but I need a little bit more help with that. So I'll look and I'll see if anything looks blatantly, near the wetlands, because there are wetlands back there. And then last but not least, I don't know if you guys follow Facebook. I certainly don't. It was reported to me today. There is someone who might potentially want to develop a really large complex on North Main, and he had, or they had,
Where?
on 334 North Main Street. This was on Cohasset 143. I don't know if you guys are on that one. It's not the town's. Yep, Will saw it. People were apparently freaking out. They've been calling the town, every department, building included. I haven't been contacted yet, but zoning and planning had obviously encouraged them to do their homework with the residents, because obviously construction of that size, it was like, I think it was almost 120 unit complex on North Main. I don't know if that's gonna happen. And obviously,
What was the address again, Charlotte?
well, it would be a combination, 334 North Main and the parcel behind it, which is like 6 acres. But nothing has been submitted. So, obviously I don't think, we can't weigh in on the project at this time from the town's end or commissioners or board's end, but if it does come through, it's going to be a huge project. But right now it's only in preliminary stages. It may or may not even happen, but people were freaking out on Facebook, so.
This is a property. Huh, maybe it's not that property.
It's like, well, so 334 North Main is the one, and it's a tiny parcel. And I think they were potentially thinking of combining it with the parcel behind it, which is like 6-something acres. And they wanted, again, at least the general preliminary plan was like 120 unit apartment complex or something. It's like,
Wow.
Low, affordable.
I don't know actually, but we'll see if that even makes the planning board stages, and but I don't know. It may not even happen. I mean, if the residents obviously express a lot of dissent, then it may not even happen. But I think it is a developer who's thinking of. I think they own the lots. It's like, I forget what the developer's name is, but they own both those lots. So
What is going on back there? It looks like there's some industrial complex there.
It says International Forest Products Transportation. That's what it's
Huh.
labeled.
wait, the parcel or?
There's a warehouse or something back there with some boats.
Yeah,
A lot of
It's-
debris spread around. Looks like a lot of grease on the ground from
Oh.
working on vehicles. It
Like a mill.
looks like they're
Great.
draining their oil on in various places here. This is ugly.
Processing a lot of lumber.
Yeah, there's all kinds of
goody.
lumber back there.
Where the heck is this?
Man, that is a
Right.
mess back there. Holy man,
Hmm.
what a mess.
Hmm.
This sort of reminds me of a parcel that's adjacent to Straits Pond, right at West Corner, where there's junk everywhere and
Ah.
this and that, tires, ruined boats, and
Yeah.
oil spills everywhere. That's the way it looks here.
Mm.
Lovely.
This is as ugly as it gets.
Yeah, I mean, who knows if it even moves forward, because obviously it hasn't been received by a building department or any other departments right now. So it may die really quickly if a lot of neighbors are really upset about it, because sometimes it's not even worth the hassle. But hey, someone wants to try, they just have to go through the permitting process like everybody else.
It might be an improvement to this property.
Honestly, probably. I don't think it's near, it's not riverfront, but there's definitely a wetland back
There's
there.
wetlands
It's,
all over here.
yeah. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens with those. All right, you guys want my regular updates now?
Sure.
So 87-124 Elm, I went there earlier this week to just inspect the erosion controls, because there's a lot of heavy work there. They definitely could patch it up in a few places, so I pointed those out. They have some granite rocks and blocks that have been sitting in the corner of 124 at the intersection around Margin Street. They said that they're just waiting to figure out what to do with that, because they may or may not utilize it for maybe some of the benches or something, but at least at this time, it's just sitting there, and they're trying to figure out if they can reuse it, because that's a lot of granite. And they may potentially, it leads me into the Shotcrete project that was repairing all the seawalls that you guys approved a few years ago. It started up again under the town. The owner of 124 Elm may want to submit an NOI or an RDA to repair the seawall in front of 124 Elm. So I advise the applicant to consider that. And it sounds like they're probably going to submit something for the fall for that. But I was mostly there to check on erosion controls just because it's a really messy site. The silt sacks are still good in the catch basins, but they do have, and they're allowed to do this, they are draining a lot of water from 87, not obviously from the brook, just from, the construction on the site. They've been pouring the foundation for that building across the street, but they do have a stormwater prevention pollution plan and permit from EPA to do that as long as they have the filtration bags in place. So those have just been continuously replaced to make sure that they're still functioning so that no sediment goes back into the, the water. But yeah, at least for now, I know it's really messy and loud, but it looks like they're still doing well. The bathroom, porta potties are obviously being kept away, James Brook, per our special condition. So, other than just patching up places here and there, it looks like everything's still going according to plan, unless anybody else has any other concerns with the site.
Shotcrete's a scam.
That was a permit, I think, before my time. I don't know. Maybe we should have approved it through an NOI, because unfortunately that was an RDA. I don't know. And
We're
then,
not the scam police. We couldn't have done anything about it.
yeah. 10 Mohawk, they finished their deck construction. They had some questions about, some minor fencing changes. So Chris and Tom, I'll send that to you guys when I get it. 46 Border Street. This one had been sitting for a while. They had to do quite a few evaluations with structural engineering, but they have since now filed for a building permit. They also now, due to the FEMA and building regulations, now have to do their construction in phases. So in terms of the general demo plan, that hasn't changed, but the way at which it's going to be completed, it will now be done in phases. So I'll keep you guys updated on that, but we are going to have a massive pre-construction site visit inspection of the demo and erosion controls, making sure those are all in place for the appropriate phases of the project. So it's now that it's phased out, it's probably going to take longer than anticipated, but I did tell them they got another, I think, 2 years now to go under the order. They may or may not have to obviously apply for an extension depending on how quick construction goes, but I would say maybe in early to mid-August, you might see that project starting up.
This is the Lubitz house?
This is Atlantica.
Oh, Atlantica. Oh.
Yeah. That'll be a fun one. Oh, and then I have a special condition to monitor that site pretty much weekly, so I will be driving by there every week.
Good.
81 Fair Oaks Lane, that one that started construction. This was like a house addition in the back against like a really steep slope on the edge of the riverfront. So they have erosion controls and everything in place, and they're ready to start the work. They're just waiting on a building permit. And then Wampatuck State Park, they have also started the replication area. So they're going to do the trail work afterwards, but DEP has recommended starting wetlands replication work before the work if it's possible and feasible. So that's what they're doing right now. They started, they staked everything out. They're digging it out to the proposed elevation, and then hopefully they'll start installing all the plantings really soon. And then they're going to start on the trail work probably later in the fall. So, yep. I think that's it, right? Oh, my other updates. Did you guys have time to look at the update now that council's weighed in on the special conditions template? Do you guys want me to pull it up real quick, or do you guys have any? Tom, you gave me one edit, so thank you. Does anybody want me to?
I think there were two, Charlotte.
Oh, there were two.
I think there were two, very minor.
Yeah, I think I incorporated those. Sorry, let me just go down to your. I don't have connection to one of my drives remotely, and unfortunately it's in that drive. So now I got to go back in my emails.
They were really pretty trivial. So
yeah.
but don't worry about it.
Okay, but do you guys, I can pull it up in OneDrive right now. Do you guys want to vote on it or do you guys want to take more time to look at it before we start putting it with orders of condition?
I guess the question is, who's looked at it besides me?
I haven't looked at it yet.
I
Um,
haven't.
I have
Okay.
not.
Okay,
Can't really vote on
continue to
it.
A3.
I will look at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll continue that. And then we can vote on it maybe next week. And then also another update, I guess I can put it under 48 hour. I just sent a revised fee schedule to town council. Per our discussions last week, we want to see if we can increase fees, since it's been 7 years. We're going to go by CPI, calculations, and we're going to see what town council says. I think it obviously is perfectly logical to do that. And then I changed all of the descriptions because especially for stormwater, there's a category that basically shouldn't be there. And so I took that out and then clarified what really is administrative versus an actual permit, because a lot of engineers have been filing under the wrong category, reading the description, and those descriptions aren't consistent with the bylaw. So I just revised it all to make it consistent with the bylaw. So once town council looks at that, I'll send it to you guys too, and we can vote on that too. I think it might have to go through additional steps if you increase the fees. I forget if it has to go to town meeting or if it just has to get approved by select board. So I'll let you guys know what that is, but I'm waiting on council to review it. I just sent it to them today.
Okay,
And
thank you.
that's it.
I think by using the consumer price index to escalate those fees, we have a strong argument that
Yeah,
not really changing the fee.
yeah,
I agree.
we're
yeah.
really not. It's mostly just thanks to inflation. Yeah.
When were they last changed?
April 10th, 2016. So they're due. It's been
Mhm.
7 years.
It's got to be close to 1.25, so.
Yeah, like for example, I'm hesitant to change this one, but just to give you guys an example, the $750 administrative fee for administrative stormwater permits is now $956.46. So yeah, went up about $200.
Mm.
Yep. More monies. Building permits, you should see the price of those. So us in comparison, it's chump change.
Yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't go to anything conservation wise, except for you.
My salary.
Yeah, but then the rest just gets
Well
sucked.
earned.
The rest
There
gets-
is a, I talked to, just to give you guys like a 30-second thing. So there is a separate account called the Wetlands Protection Act funds. Those funds are supposed to be utilized by the commission for either peer reviews or purchase of materials or training, or, gear for the agent, because that's how a lot of agents like fund their budgets. So I had tried talking to our financial department a couple months ago, and let's just say it did not go well, because conservation's in the red. But there is supposed to be it is delineated that way on the budget expenditure reports, but I tried to ask how I can utilize those and kind of talking to a wall. So I'm going to see what I can do about that, because all the other agents are like, you're not doing this. I'm like, I didn't even know that existed. So
The only way conservation's in the red if there's like 6 people in town hall which are getting their salaries from conservation. I mean, there's no way.
Yeah.
yeah,
Spend it on.
I'm not sure. Unfortunately, I'm not involved in the processing of the fees and the all that stuff. So usually those are done by the admins. So again, I tried to figure out how things were set up, but yeah, I'll have to look into it a little bit more. Yeah, there is definitely a separate account that's supposed to have a portion of the Wetlands Protection Act fees that the commission should be allowed to use under certain circumstances. I just don't. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm a little bit of metal wall there. So
How big is the deficit?
Huh?
How big is the deficit?
I think it's like 10 grand. Yeah. I don't honestly, this is my first municipal job. So to be honest, I really don't understand how this is set up. Like there's a general revolving fund, and basically my loose interpretation of that is it's pretty much just a big slush fund that all just goes into the general town, like.
Right, yeah,
Now-
and the deficit just gets divided up. You know,
Yeah, so I just don't understand why it is like that. I thought like all departments should have their own money, their own budget, That's how I've done
Yeah.
every other job. And I don't understand this revolving fund and
Dream
it,
on.
it doesn't make a lot of sense. I know. It'd be nice if I could budget and do things, but I don't know. I'll
Yeah.
figure it out. I'm just piggybacking off the building's budget. So if I do have to get anything for this job, I'm going to ask my boss about it. But, at least obviously we make applicants pay for peer reviews. So I don't think that's an issue, but sometimes conservation commissions may pay for one depending on the situation. But, yeah, maybe we'll have to do that for Lambert's Lane, but who knows? I mean, we'll see if we have money. Yeah, so I don't know. We'll figure it out. But I will send the revised fee schedule to you guys when council's looked at it, and then we can vote on that too. Might have to go through additional steps with select board or town meeting, but we'll figure that out.
Okay.
Okay,
That's it. All right. I think
Make a
that's it.
I make a motion to adjourn.
second.
Second.
That's the most seconds we've gotten tonight.
I know.
So we'll do it by collective voice vote.
Okay, aye.
Aye.
Thanks,
Yay.
Stephanie. Good
Night,
job,
everyone.
Tom.
Yeah, good
Thank
job.
you,
Yeah,
Tom.
good job, Tom.
You deserve a vacation now.
Still learning.